All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is David Patrick Harry with Church of the Eternal Logos, and we have a great sponsored stream tonight. Shout out to Meta Ninjas. It's going to be one that's going to be funny, sad, infuriating all at the same time. We're going to be refuting the alchemical Jesus. This is some esoteric nonsense from the YouTube channel Mind Unveiled, in which they claim the full title of their video is Homunculus Unveiled, Jesus, Liber Vaccae, Artificial Generation, and Lost Esoteric Secrets, in which they argue that Jesus was actually the product of an alchemical ritual, and he was the first homunculus. Or at other points, they say maybe he's just symbolic of the fulfillment of the homunculus. Just absolutely retarded stuff. And so today, when I was doing the research and preparing for this stream, I was preparing for something a little bit more sophisticated, philosophical, intellectual. I started to dive into this 9-hour video, which, again, the gentleman, shout out to Meta Ninjas for sponsoring today's stream. He didn't say I needed to watch all 9 hours, but he wanted me to pick out what I deemed the most important topic and sort of attack that. And so I started looking at it, and I just couldn't believe what I was looking at. The basic premise of this 9-hour film or video that they put together on YouTube is taking the alchemical lore of the homunculus that begins with Paracelsus. Paracelsus is the Swiss alchemist of the German Renaissance. He was somebody who sort of amalgamated, to use alchemical language, hermetic, esoteric, alchemical lore with his Lutheranism. So this is, again, that really important 16th century, the 1500s, which we've highlighted with John Dee and Michael Meyer. And, well, Michael Meyer comes towards the end of that 16th century into the 17th to 1600s. We've talked about Rosicrucianism. We did a whole stream going over Rosicrucianism and how that really got going at the beginning of the 17th century. But Paracelsus, he wrote about the homunculus, which, for some of you who don't know, the homunculus is the idea that the alchemist could put minerals, metals, organic material together, and through the crystallization process, they could distill an actual human inside of a vat. And it'd be like a miniature, it'd be like a small little baby / adult. And so this group, this Mind Unveiled YouTube channel, which they are Tartarians. So I wasn't familiar with their work, wasn't familiar with their YouTube channel, had no idea what exactly I was diving into. Well, they have a totally different historical timeline. Okay, so here's just a few. Here's a few of the claims that you're going to hear it live as we cover their video. First, they claim that Jesus actually lived in the 11th century. So because they are Tatarians, they believe in a totally different timeline, which is based on the work of Anatolia Fomenko, which is a Soviet era conspiracy theorist, mathematician who posits that there's like a major gap in the Western timeline and believes that history is much shorter than we suspect. And so these people claim that Jesus actually lived in the 11th century, the 1000s. They also claim that Jesus was a homunculus. So he's the product of an alchemical ritual. They claim that Jesus Christ is androgynous. They claim that Jesus Christ gave birth, and this has to do with their interpretation of the spear of Longinus. You know how when Christ was on the cross, he was stabbed right here. You can see it. He was stabbed, and that's where blood and water come out separated, and you can get into the work of Dr. William Guy, who highlights why that is the case when actually somebody's been beaten significantly, physically beaten, that the body, the blood will become thicker. And so the water and blood will actually begin to separate. And this is then we have scientific basis and many examples of this happening to people, again, described in the description of Christ on the cross when Longinus' spear pierces his side. Well, they claim, oh, well, if you look at like Renaissance art, it looks like a vagina. What? And so I'm not kidding. Again, you guys are going to see all this stuff. So they claim that Jesus gave birth. Again, that's part of his androgyny. They claim the Theotokos, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Mary of Bethany, and Mary the Jewess, one of the first, well, she's like an ancient figure from Egypt who was an alchemist, right? And they claim that Saint Mary of Egypt are all the same person. What? You can't be serious. Yes, they are serious, unfortunately. So they have no understanding of like orthodoxy, Christian history, Christian theology. But this whole work is basically this video that we're going to watch segments of. We're not going to watch this whole thing. We're just going to watch segments. But the video takes the idea of the homunculus, looks at Renaissance and alchemical and sort of heretical Christian art, and then reinterprets the entirety of the Christian tradition from that. Again, I'm going to lay out some of their philosophical errors right from the get-go. But yeah, so Jesus lived in the 11th century. Jesus was a homunculus. Jesus was androgynous. Jesus gave birth. The Theotokos, Mary Magdalene, Mary Bethany, Mary the Jewess, and Saint Mary of Egypt are all the exact same person. The myrrh-bearing women were actually wise witches. So the myrrh-bearing women, this is something that we celebrate in Orthodoxy. We have the myrrh bearer, a Sunday for the myrrh bearers, where we honor the women that brought myrrh to Christ. They claim that they are actually wise witches, and they're contrasting with the wise magi that came to visit Christ at his birth. And so that the three Marys, as they call them, the three Marys are the wise witches that are the inverse of the three magi. They claim that Abraham is the father of alchemy. They claim that the homunculus is the ultimate goal of all secret and advanced spiritual groups. And then at the end, this was right before I went live, I was watching just towards the end of it when they're talking about the judgment. They equate Baphomet and Jesus as the same figure. So this is what we're up against. Again, there's not a whole lot of intellectual sophistication here. So after about an hour, I clicked right in the beginning of it. I couldn't watch this whole thing. I mean, it's 9 hours long of nonsense. But what they do is they barrage the listener with information, with names and concepts and stuff that somebody watching who has no discernment, no intellectual sophistication regarding the history of Western esoteric traditions or Gnosticism or Christian theology, they would sort of be bombarded by it and be sort of awestruck. And that's really the sort of theme of these videos, because there's no hermeneutical consensus. There's no authoritative consensus. There's no epistemic consensus in their stuff. They just pick and choose and grab things all over the place. It's horrendous. And so in regards to some of the errors that I wanted to discuss before we got into it is, number one, the word concept fallacy. So this entire video that is going to claim that Jesus was an androgynous homunculus that was created in the 11th century, they will look at symbols and they will then give a description. Well, this is what this symbol means in alchemy. This is what this symbol means in the occult. This is what this, and then they then go look at Christianity and then make the same claim, not realizing, again, that, a logical fallacy is the word concept fallacy, that different, the same word can mean different things. Well, the same thing's true with a symbol, right? A symbol can mean many different things. An upside down cross can both mean the cross of Peter, and it can also mean Satanism. And so they have no sophistication regarding, again, this fallacy of single interpretations of things. This is why hermeneutics is important. This is why, again, I don't know if you guys saw last night, Jay Dyer just obliterated Bryson Gray. It was Bryson Gray, God bless him. I hope that he eventually comes to orthodoxy, but not a strong showing at all. Jay absolutely destroyed him last night in their debate, but he also was guilty of the word concept fallacy and the inability to know that there are different interpretations of something. But this whole video, the entire video, assumes that symbols have one meaning, and the one meaning is the meaning that they ascribe to it based on their esoteric alchemical hermeneutic. So it's pretty bad. Somebody says, yeah, that was hard to watch. I couldn't. Yeah, the debate last night was brutal. I know. Valkyrie says Bryson was brutal last night. Dude, it was terrible. It was terrible. It's an embarrassing showing. He shouldn't be doing debates. He clearly, and then he's, well, I know the Bible because I take quizzes. What? We know what you're saying is true because you take some online quiz based on Matthew. Oh, as you guys know, I actually have a scheduled debate with Bryson Gray. It's supposed to be on August 3rd. So we'll see how that goes. But boy, it was more unimpressive than I was expecting. I gave him more credit than was clearly due. Anyways, moving back to a conversation today, this 9-hour long video, which is totally blasphemous. I mean, makes no sense. It's just dumb. And while I was watching sections of it, I just thought about the old me. I remember when I was an undergraduate in college and I was really interested in these sort of secret interpretations. I was into Jordan Maxwell and Michael Tsarian, right? And looking at words and all this. They do the same thing, right? So when they talk about the point in which Christ was stabbed in the ribs, and this was when he was on the cross, they said, do you notice how wound and womb sounds like the same word? Are you an idiot? That's only in English. Oh my gosh, these people are stupid. But anyways, the word concept fallacy is replete through this video that you're going to watch, guys. Again, get your popcorn ready. You're going to laugh. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to be humiliated for these people because this is just absolutely retarded. But what's surprising is how popular it is. This video was put out a month ago, and it already has almost 300,000 views, a 9-hour long video claiming that Jesus was created as a homunculus from an alchemical ritual in the 11th century, is androgynous, gave birth, and it's the same thing as Baphomet. Again, there's so much more we'll get into. So one of their other problems too is that they, like I said, they use only Renaissance and medieval sources to then explain the entirety of the Christian tradition. How does that make any sense? Please, somebody tell me how you look. Well, the reason why it makes sense to these people is because they're Tartarians. They actually don't believe in the ancient period, and this is how they get away with it. Although at other times they'll then appeal to the ancient period, and they were doing this during the ancient period. But then other times, again, they claim that Jesus was created in the 11th century. I mean, it's stupid. It's absolutely stupid. But because their video, it's like information overload. The people, I was going through the comments, I couldn't believe the comments. Everybody's like, "Oh, this is amazing. This is gold. This is legendary." And all I could think is, oh my gosh, this is why it's so important to be able to critically think. Because again, when I was in the undergraduate, I was into Jordan Maxwell or Michael Tsarian or whatever sort of esoteric or alternative historical analysis. I remember going to a university professor with some of the main stuff from like Jordan Maxwell and talking about religion. And they were just like, looked at me like, what? And they luckily were able to then articulate more sound academic explanations for things. And I remember I felt embarrassed. But these people clearly don't feel embarrassed. So they only use Renaissance and medieval sources to explain ancient events, which then they reject the ancient period because they're Tartarians, but then they do accept the ancient period in other parts of the video. And they use very few historically contextualized explanations. So they'll talk about, oh my gosh, Saint Mary of Egypt is said to, by the Orthodox Church, was said to be existed at this point in history. And then they'll use some like medieval representation or Renaissance art or whatever to then explain something that they just localized or contextualized back in the ancient period. It's like, I want to know what those people say. What does the Eastern Orthodox say? But again, they don't get into any of this. It assumes everything must be symbolic and not literal. The only thing literal is their symbolic interpretation of everything. The only thing literal is that they're literally saying that Jesus is a homunculus. They're literally saying that Jesus was actually from the 11th century. What? So they never provide an alternate or competing interpretation. They'll look at all these, Hieronymus Bosch, Peter Bruegel, Hieronymus Koch. So all these Flemish Dutch painters, and they'll just look at a work and then they'll just start coming up with their occult esoteric interpretation of it, and that's it. And it's like, well, bro, you didn't even explain, like, what did actually the painter mean by it? What did the community that supported it mean by it? Like, they just attribute whatever meaning they want to it. It's absolutely retarded. Yeah, Leo's right. Gnostics back at it again, collapsing on their own retardation. I'm telling you guys, this one is next level retardation. And this YouTube channel is so popular. So again, shout out to Meta Ninjas for sponsoring today's stream. I wasn't aware of the YouTube channel Mind Unveiled, and I definitely was not aware how how ridiculous many of these things are. So here we go. So that, like I said, they are entirely based, then their whole framework is based on the post-schism Western tradition, right? So they have no understanding of the Eastern Orthodoxy. They have no understanding of church history. They have no epistemic authority or hermeneutical authority for the interpreting of anything. It reminds me of the Beartardia community, because I was watching a few of their videos. Like, one of them claims that the Bible actually comes from Tartaria. This was literally a video that I think it has like 600,000 views or something over on their YouTube channel. And it reminds me of like Owen Benjamin in the Beartardia community, like all these retards that get a little piece of the truth or a little piece of something esoteric or occult, and then just create wild interpretations of something. And like I said, it reminded me of Bryson Gray having no understanding of hermeneutics, because they never bring into question or at least even try to justify their own interpretation of anything. And it makes the same mistakes as the psychonauts. So the people who want to posit that Christianity is a mushroom cult, or all religions are based on drug use, they overemphasize their symbolic hermeneutic, right? Well, the same thing is true today. It's, again, like I said, you're going to see an argument that Jesus lived in the 11th century. He was androgynous. He was a homunculus from an alchemical ritual. He gave birth. Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, Mary of Bethany, Mary the Jewess, and Saint Mary of Egypt are all actually the same historical person. The myrrh-bearing women were actually wise witches. The three wise men came to witness an alchemical ritual. Abraham was the father of alchemy. The homunculus is the ultimate goal of all secret advanced spiritual groups, and that Jesus and Baphomet are basically the same thing. So we're going to see all this stuff, and I'm not kidding you at all. So get ready for this. So it looks like I'm going to be responding to super chats as we go today. So instead of just doing them at the end, I want to do them as we go through today. So it looks like Meta Ninjas, our brother Meta Ninjas, already threw in $5. Shout out to Meta Ninjas. Again, he sponsored today's stream. And he says, thank you for taking on this stream, DPH. Hey, thank you, brother, for supporting. I truly do appreciate it. And then another person threw $5 in. This is Zach Flayton. Shout out to Zach. And he says, the whole occultism thing is fueled by pride. It's all a see how I know flex. There's always one more secret to know, one more level to be initiated into. And in this case, more alternative history you didn't know about. It never ends. That is true. That's such a great point. It's the special boy worldview, right? This is for special boys because you have the special interpretation. You have the special knowledge. Don't you know that history's fake? Tartaria is real. Jesus is actually only from the 11th century. What? And so even the Tartaria thing, you know, for the evidence that they point to regards to Anatoly Fomenko, they highlight that, well, he claimed that there was a break in the historical record in the Western period. Okay, even if you wanted to buy that, there's not over in China. So one of the things that totally collapses the Tartaria thing is, bro, that historical record that you think has been fraudulent and like later a historical revision. Well, China has historical records from the exact same period. But again, they're not interested in actual sophisticated arguments. So guys, smash that like. I want to get straight into this video so you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about. I want to take a few quick announcements to begin with. Number one, guys, I don't know if you saw, but while I was on my suspension due to my Sound of Freedom review, we have surpassed 19,000 subs here on YouTube. Glory to God for that. So we are now on the count to 20,000. And this 20,000 subs has been a huge goal for me. Creating this YouTube channel, I wanted to get 1,000 subs because that's usually the hardest, is your first 1,000. Then it was 10,000 and then 20,000. And so I am on the precipice of accomplishing a major milestone in my own work, and that is to surpass 20,000 subs. And so if you can help me out and subscribe, give me a thumbs up, help the algorithm, if you would appreciate to send in a little bit of love, be it a super chat on YouTube or Streamlabs, I would be greatly, greatly appreciative of that. But I'm just kind of excited. Less than 1,000 more subs, and we're going to break 20,000. This was a huge milestone for me. I also wanted to say tomorrow I'm going to be doing another half and half lecture, this time on an overview of drug mysticism from the Mysteries of Eleusis, the Eleusinian Mysteries, where we're going to discuss the kakekion and ergot and the inebriating substance been theorized there. In the paper, we're going to be reviewing another paper just like we did in the Kant video, but we're going to be going from the Mysteries of Eleusis up to Aleister Crowley. And I wrote a large paper basically demonstrating just briefly quick segments of where drug mysticism has been important to religion. So I get into Sufism, I get into Soma, I get into the Eleusinian Mysteries, and I get into drug use within the Western esoteric tradition specifically, and how that then comes to full fulfillment in Aleister Crowley. And then once we move into the 20th century with him, we get Aldous Huxley, right? And Aldous Huxley leads into Timothy Leary, Terence McKenna, and that brings us to the 21st century, basically. So that I'm going to be doing tomorrow, and that's another half and half. So if you want to catch the second half of that, please become a website member, And so you can become a website member with this link right here. I would greatly appreciate that. Again, all my half and half lectures, the first half is free on YouTube, and the second half is for the $5 a month website members that have access to exclusive video content. We already have, again, the second half of the Kant lecture is already up. So let me show you that real quick. So again, here, if you become a website member, you get access to all this. We got this stream right here was banned from YouTube. So the only place you can get that is on Rockfin or here on the website. And then I'm going to be doing a lot more half and half. So the second half of some of these lectures are going to be only for people at the website. Shout out to Lyra, throws in $9.99 a super sticker. Thank you so much, Lyra. God bless you. Truly, truly appreciate it. And that reminds me, guys, for a new emoji here on the YouTube members, I only need 4 more members. I need 4 more people to sign up as a YouTube member. and we are going to get a new emoji, and you'll help me choose between, we got a Klaus Schwab emoji, or we can get a Terrence McKenna emoji. I think the Terrence McKenna, we already have a Klaus Schwab. I think the Terrence McKenna will be good, but I need 4 more people to sign up. So God willing, I hope we can break that during this stream and get 4 more YouTube members to get access to those exclusive emojis here in the chat. But again, need 4 more members for that. Also, we have one-on-one sessions. So if anybody wants to set up a one-on-one session where you can have my undivided attention to dive into any topic you so desire, you can do so with this link right here. I would greatly appreciate that. And we do those every Wednesday on every week. And also, again, a major shout out goes out to Meta Ninjas for sponsoring today's stream. And if you also, I know somebody just hit me up earlier today asking about how they can sponsor a stream. It's through my website. This is the link right here. If you have a topic you'd like me to dive into, do some research on, provide a critical analysis or refute, you can do so by purchasing a sponsored stream. This is a great way to help me. It's a great way for me to create new content that maybe I wouldn't have thought of. For example, today's content, I don't follow Mind Unveiled, so I had no idea that this YouTube channel even existed. And then also, guys, another great way to help me is by going to Orthodox Depot. So if you're looking for really nice prayer ropes, potentially some icons, or maybe an Orthodox necklace or something like that, go over to Orthodox Depot and you can get 10% off all the products by using the promo code COTEL, COTEL. And you can get 10% off of, and this is a good Orthodox company right here in the Midwest. So that's why I was glad to be partnered up with Orthodox Depot. And if you want to both get something for yourself, but also help me out, go over there. You'll get 10% off and you'll be helping me out. So, okay, now with that being said, let's get into this wild presentation we got ahead of us today. Okay, so here we go. This is a 9-hour-long video called Homunculus Unveiled: Jesus, Liber Vaccae, Artificial Generation, Lost Esoteric Secrets. We're going to be playing the clips mostly oriented towards the end that are focusing on Jesus Christ, because the stuff that they talk about is retarded. It's absolutely retarded. These people are retarded. You know, I don't want to get too ad hominem right away. So I'm going to play this intro real quick. We're going to click through some of these intros, and I'm going to play the intro and allow them to explain to you what exactly they think they're doing with this video, this presentation, arguing that Jesus Christ is the product from an alchemical ritual creating the homunculus. He's androgynous. He gives birth. He's actually, because the Tartarian history is actually only from the 11th century. Now, as you look, this thing is only a month old. It has almost 300,000 views, almost 10,000 likes. And I was just scrolling through the comments here. If you hadn't already achieved legendary status in the truth-seeking community, it's now fully impossible to argue otherwise. Oh my gosh. I want to applaud you for the amount of work and time you put into making this 10-hour video. Now, I'm sure it did take them a long time. I don't doubt that. But the quality is piss poor. I hope you have backed it up somewhere, transcript, written PDF. Anyways, you just go through and it's all these congratulating. Now, I'm going to let you form your own opinion. But this is just the intro. This is these people explaining what it is they think they're getting ready to do.
Concept of a homunculus. A tiny article.
Let me turn that. I had it all sped up. Let me turn it down to 1.25 because they do speak kind of slow.
Artificial man created in a jar. It's one of the most searched terms on Google. And in 2016, the term was revived due to viral videos under a Russian YouTuber who insisted he had discovered the method of creating a homunculus. These videos convinced millions, but it wasn't long until they were proven to be fakes. This ended up with the term losing credibility and leading many to believe that this entire subject is just a joke. The idea of the homunculus in the scientific community in the modern day has been denounced as the mere fantasies or imagination of medieval writers in the 17th century. Yet, these mainstream historians are not willing to explore some areas of thoughts on this topic, specifically esoteric secrets, as it is outside their expertise. For this knowledge delves into the science and art of the alchemist. Alchemy is the foundation of modern science, so it's important for one to take the subject seriously, especially when we can read what the scientists of that time actually wrote on the subject. We must remember as we begin to dive into this material that the term homunculus may have dual-fold meaning that it's not so singular in its definition.
Yeah, they say that so that they can interpret it many ways, but then as we'll show, so let's now move forward. So we're going to skip a large swath of their video. Again, this is almost 10 hours long. We're going to start getting into where they start getting into Christianity. So at 4 hours and 55 minutes, they start getting into the alchemical secrets in the Bible. Okay, so basically before that, they're going over basic, alchemical Western esoteric stuff. John Dee, the Golem, Albert Magus, Paracelsus, Michael Meyer, so much and so forth. Stuff that we've covered and discussed on this channel. Now, at the almost 5 hour mark, they get into how it ties back to the Bible. So here we're going to click forward to this.
So, are there alchemical references in the Bible? Before we answer that question, we need to kind of point out the Bible's issue with sorcery and secrecy. So remember, with the brazen head and the spirits and how people or sorcerers were communicating with them in order to gain knowledge, they would ask a question, receive an output. So the Bible is acknowledging that this was occurring and that it was very real. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 26, quote, "You shall not eat anything with blood, nor shall you practice divination or soothsaying," end quote. Leviticus 19:31, "Give no regard to mediums and familiar spirits. Do not seek after them, to be defiled by them. I am your Lord God." Leviticus 26, "And the person who turns to mediums and familiar spirits to prostitute himself with them, I will set my face against that person and cut him off from his people." Leviticus chapter 20, verse 27, quote, "A man or woman who is a
Okay, moving forward.
receive information, but to also manipulate and cause real-world effects, or black magic, using the natural laws of the universe to communicate with spirits to manifest a physical, material desire." We can also see this connected to idol worship, as God or Jehovah does not want his followers worshiping any other god or communicating with any other spirits of any kind. That is really what he's discussing. God never truly condemns alchemy or the positive attributes of magic or the occult, because remember, the occult simply means that which is hidden.
Yeah, see, God only condemns black magic, guys. He doesn't condemn occultism or esotericism or any of these secret societies. False. At a later point, he basically makes the argument that the Freemasons and Masonry and these secret Rosicrucian societies have the true exegesis and hermetical lens for Christianity. That's false. Orthodox Christianity is explicit that there are no secrets. Christ is the light. He comes to reveal. Christians are called to speak exoterically truth. Our goal as Christians is not to form secret societies. We can form brotherhoods. We can form groups, men's groups, women's groups. But our job is not to have secret knowledge. This is a different spiritual paradigm, which is more suited for what's called Luciferianism, which is about hoarding the light. Luciferianism is more about having secret knowledge and then hoarding it and then keeping other people in the dark. Satanism is more about a complete inversion of the Christian worldview. So no, this is why both Orthodoxy and Catholicism condemn membership to Masonry or any secret society and still receiving the body and blood. You can't receive the Eucharist and be a Mason. That's an allegiance to a totally different organization and set of values. So the idea here, well, God in the Bible doesn't condemn magic and occultism and esotericism per se, or alchemy, because the whole point is trying to make an alchemical hermeneutic for the Bible, which you're going to laugh at once we get a little deeper here. So let's go to the next section in which we look at Abraham. I just want you guys to hear him say that Abraham's actually the father of alchemy. I've never heard anybody make that argument.
Abraham, meaning father of many, is a significant figure in various religious and esoteric traditions, including some that credit him with being the father of alchemy. The Sefer Yetzirah, one of the most renowned ancient mystical kabbalistic texts, is traditionally ascribed to the patriarch Abraham, although others attribute its writing to Rabbi Akiva. The word Yetzirah is more literally translated as formation, while the word Briah is used for creation. Dating back to around 200 AD, this text delves into the formation of the world. It serves as an early work on Jewish mysticism, unveiling the secrets of the Sephiroths.
So again, here's this historical illiteracy. Kabbalah comes from the Zohar. The Zohar is a medieval text that was written in the 13th century, the 1200s in Spain. At that point, the Moors, the Umayyad Empire had already taken over peninsula, the Iberian Peninsula there. And as I've talked about before, this is where a real presupposition of perennialism, or the people of the book, or the Abrahamic faith being or worshiping the same God, it really got going in this period. Because as again, the paper that we'll discuss tomorrow night in our half and half video is that I show in that paper the documental evidence that the use of hashish and cannabis and opium smoking was brought into Spain during that period, and that Christians and Muslims and Jews alike were participating in these new forms of mysticism. Now, a Kabbalist or a Jew that practiced Kabbalah, they're going to tell you, oh, no, it's old, it's old, it's old. No, there is no evidence. There's been multiple scholars that have debunked this. There is no evidence that the Kabbalah pre-exists Christ. Again, as he's insinuating here, that the Kabbalah goes all the way back to Abraham. No, it does not. No, it does not. There is no academic evidence, no actual evidence to say that the Kabbalah is that old. Even by Kabbalists, they'll say, well, it's 1st or 2nd century. It goes back to the 1st or 2nd century, where some of these practices, the Jews maybe got in understood forms of Babylonian or Persian magic or Egyptian magic, and they sort of incorporated these into their own spiritual tradition, bringing more expression and understanding to their own tradition. But if you really want to get in the details, this whole worldview with the Sephiroth and Kabbalah, that is tied to the Zohar. There's 3 major texts in Judaism. You have the Torah, then you have the Talmud, and then you have the Zohar. And this differentiates an Orthodox Jew versus a rabbinical Jew versus a Kabbalist. Okay, depends on which book do they put as a primary emphasis upon. So this right here doesn't even make any sense. Abraham was not practicing the Kabbalah. What are you talking about? That is just stupid.
In the map of the Tree of Life. Viewing Abraham in a Kabbalistic light is interesting, considering his role as the patriarch of monotheistic religions. As the father of Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, Abraham is claimed to be the father from each religion. Each of these 3 religions, though distinct in their doctrines and tradition, trace their spiritual lineage back to Abraham. In Judaism, it's Isaac, Abraham's son with his wife Sarah, who carried forward the divine promise, becoming one of the patriarchs of the Jewish people. Christianity, in turn, views the lineage through a spiritual lens, with Abraham's faith in God seen as a precursor to Christians' faith, and his covenant with God a foreshadowing of the new covenant through Jesus Christ.
See, that even misunderstands that the way that we participate with God is through the Eucharist. We're not sola scripturis. We're not sola fideists. We're not Protestants. So the majority of Christian history doesn't believe that Abraham is just symbolic because he had faith in God and we have faith in God, and that's why no. Yes, he upheld the covenant. He was faithful. He certainly had faith in God. He was an obedient man. He was a righteous man. But it's more so Christianity in Christ is the fulfillment of that Abrahamic and that Davidic line, right? So again, this guy has no understanding of Christian history whatsoever. Now I just want to skip forward. We're going to go into Jesus time. Okay, so this is where it really put on your thinking caps here, because he's going to say that Jesus Christ is actually from the 11th century.
Now let's cover false time and Jesus. One of the key authors on alternative histories and chronologies is Anatoly Fomenko, the Russian mathematician and scholar known for his work in History, Fiction or Science, a series where he presents a new chronology. I believe it ties in here intimately with Jesus. Fomenko points out the lack of reliable primary sources for events dated before the 9th century. There's a vast gap in the record from the time of Rome all the way to the 12th century. Really, when we see many Arabic texts being translated into Latin. Essentially, Fomenko shows how historical documents have been tampered and or edited by later historians, making it even more difficult to ascertain their true content and chronology. But one thing that's interesting is how he discusses that Jesus Christ was actually born in 1053 and was crucified in 1086. This is fascinating to consider because
born in 1053 and crucified in 1086. Give me a break. Again, and so his whole thing's built on this one guy right here. His name's Anatoly Fomenko, and he is a Soviet or Russian conspiracy theorist, mathematician, professor of Moscow State University, well known as a topologist and a member of the Russian Academy of Sciences. He is author of a fictitious pseudoscientific history known as the New Chronology. Now, I'm not saying that Wikipedia, if it says something is pseudoscientific, it is. Obviously, Wikipedia is not a reliable source in that regard, but his whole thing is not, let's just say there's many critics in the academy and around the world that have criticized this idea, but he's a historical revisionist. He claims that Jesus lived in the 12th century. Well, really it's the 11th century, and was crucified on Joshua's Hill, that the Trojan War and the Crusades were the same historical event, that Genghis Khan and the Mongols were actually Russians, that the lands of the 13 colonies that now constitute the American West and Middle West were a far eastern part of the Siberian American Empire prior to the disintegration in 1775, and many other theories that contradict the conventional historiography, as well as disputing written chronologies. Fomenko also disputes scientific dating techniques such as dendrochronology and radiocarbon dating. His books include the empirico-statistical analysis of narrative material and its applications, and history, fiction, or science. More Russian scientists, worldwide historians consider Fomenko's historical works to be either pseudoscientific or anti-scientific. But, of course, when we're dealing with esotericists, we're not dealing with the sharpest tools in the shed, if you will. So this is the basis, and this began to make sense. Now, this is 5 hours into this 10-hour long video. And so now it begins to make sense. I didn't know, because I don't watch this Mind Unveiled channel, which has 231,000 subscribers. I didn't know that these were Tatarians until I went to their YouTube. So then I opened this up. I go, I wonder what kind of stuff they post. And I see this is what we're looking at: the Homunculus unveiled, and then Tataria explained. Oh, okay. Then I started looking, and I was like, okay, what do these people do? Secret Black History, Tataria explained, Baltimore unveiled, Tataria explained, the Bible is Tatarian, expose, the Bible's Tatarian, sorry guys. Oh my gosh.
Because it adds an entire different perspective to the Templar connection, as they come into formation in only 32 or 33 years later. His evidence for this is the Shroud of Turin. The artifact that the Templars were attempting to steal and possess. Well, in this case, they are the descendants, so perhaps they're the ones who already had it, or they took it from the Holy Land, and some authors suggest it was so that they could worship the head of Jesus. But what is the Shroud of Turin? Essentially, it's a photograph of Jesus. This is a holy relic that was used to wrap Jesus during his burial. This negative image is associated with a popular Catholic devotion to the holy face of Jesus.
And regarding the Shroud of Turin, I did a stream. I highly recommend everybody go and watch a presentation by Dr. William Guy. He has the ultimate presentation on the Shroud of Turin, which highlights its actual historicity. So his whole point is that, Fomenko, he highlighted that the Shroud of Turin may be real, but it's dated to the medieval period. Well, that's already been discussed. And if you go listen to the presentation by Dr. William Guy, he highlights that there has been fragments of the Shroud of Turin that had been re-sewed on, and those pieces of fabric were intentionally dated to give it an ulterior date to say that the Shroud of Turin wasn't fake. However, when you date a more centered material in the Shroud of Turin, it does in fact date to like 4 years before or after the turn of the first millennium. So the years one, right? The year one. So it's like 4 BC to like 4 AD based on pollen that's been found inside the Shroud of Turin, which gives it more historical plausibility. Again, I'd highly recommend Dr. William Guy. He's the man to check that out. He's an expert on that. Tapio throws in $2. It says, why do these fairies have soy voices? I thought the same thing, right? This guy who has this whole alternate historical timeline. Wait till the girl comes on. I don't know if it's his sister or his girlfriend or whatever, but she has a voice that's just about as deep as his. And it's like, I don't think it's a coincidence. Let's just put it that way, Tapio. I don't think it's a coincidence. So thank you so much, brother. And also we missed one. My sister, Amptown, won. She threw in $5 and said 20,000 subs coming soon. I sure hope so. Thank you so much, sister, for the $5 super chat. I really do appreciate it. And yes, We are on the road to 20,000. I am so excited to reach that 20,000 goal and to do a 20,000 subscriber celebration stream. It's coming. It's definitely coming. So, guys, smash that like for everybody who's here. And at one point, if you would like to send in some love, you can do so through YouTube or through Streamlabs. Here we go.
Now, let's not argue the authenticity, but Fomenko points out, quote, "These results have proved shocking for many. In September 1988, a report appeared telling of the analysis and the fact that it gave a certain dating of the shroud's fabric, which turned out 1,000 years more recent than the alleged date of Christ's death, even if the shroud is dated as a 11th century artifact."
But again, as I said, go watch Dr. William Guy. He refutes all this stuff and shows the plausibility of it literally being the shroud of Christ.
The author ceases the discussion of the dating after this and begins to ponder the veracity of Christ's image as seen on the shroud. One arrives at the following conclusions. 1. Either the Shroud of Turin is a forgery. 2. The radiocarbon datings can contain errors of several centuries or even millennia. 3. Or the Shroud of Turin is an original, but dated to the 11th, 13th century AD. If this could be the case, it is natural to ask about the century that Christ's lifetime pertains to. Could it really have been the 12th century?
No, it wasn't the 12th century. Why? Because, again, they added fabric to the Shroud of Turin, and that was what it was in fact dated, and that's why they initially had that. It's already been redated. As I said, this was towards the end of the 20th century, the beginning of the 21st century, and it shows that it does in fact date to 4 years before or 4 years after year one. So, again, doesn't make any sense. Here we're going to go to the well, let's just continue on here. We'll play a little bit more.
End quote. As you can see, he's even open to the possibility of the radiocarbon dating being incorrect, but this would pose some other questions as well in the dating of other historical artifacts. Essentially, Fomenko lays out a base that the surviving chronicles of our entire history only begins around the 10th century, as nothing can be confirmed before that date accurately. So Fomenko throws out the Scaligerian chronology, the typical viewpoint of the rise and fall of civilizations from 5,000 years ago, with Mesopotamian cultures in Egypt, a modern historical timeline. However, with starting this hypothesis, a number of phantom duplicates are found on the dates preceding 900 or 1000 AD. Fomenko claims that phantom duplicates have their medieval originals located in the time interval of 900 to 1600 AD. Fomenko, being a mathematician, devised a formula for calculating the dates of these events, by comparing and contrasting 4 different derived chronicles of the original chronicle. By doing this, he calculates a method of shift or adding of years to calculate approximately 330 to 360 years, as there are certain distortions, as he calls them, that need to be accounted for in history. It gets even more interesting because Fomenko popularized and made well known the use of J in historical records for dating of manuscripts in art. Jesus, or the X, was declared to stand for the figure 10. The letter I denoted the name Jesus, but was used for 1,000 years. The idea is, did Rome truly exist 2,000 years ago, with technology and architecture that was lost after the fall leading to the Dark Ages? Seems strange that there would be such a gap in the historical record. And considering what we know about secret societies, there's no doubt that we can consider that Scaliger may have played his part in the rule of the new Holy Roman Church, a way to extend their rule and power to ancient times. Now we begin the next section, and I do want to say that this video is not here to discredit Jesus. It's not our goal to send disrespect, although this may be considered blasphemous. I will handle the subject to the best of my ability with an open mind, not attempting to make irrational claims, and truly just explore the idea from a research perspective, as there are some serious connections to be made. So, is Jesus Christ a homunculus? Is it such a crazy thought? Let's just think about this for a moment.
Is it such a crazy thought that Jesus was actually a homunculus created in an alchemical ritual in the 12th century? Yeah, dude, you're an idiot.
His birth of a virgin, so he was born without the use of sex.
Yes, and that had to do with the Holy Spirit and Mary saying yes and the Immaculate Conception. This is not a hermetic or alchemical ritual at all.
It's obvious that this was some type of miraculous birth.
Yes.
Well, there are people who have spoken about this very topic, not only in the modern day, but there are actual historical figures who discuss this, although cryptically. This goes back to the early 15th century with Alonso de Estado, who was a Spanish theologian, counselor of John II of Castile, and briefly Bishop of Avila. His epitaph stated, "Wonder of earth, all men can know he scanned." A leading scholar of his generation, he's particularly known as an early theorist on witchcraft. Tostado proposed that Mary was a sealed vessel, Although this is not the same as a traditional homunculus, it's very close because Mary had the menstrual blood in the womb. Tostado argued that Mary would not have enough blood for the full development of Jesus in the womb. Therefore, he would have been condensed into a miniature version of a baby.
So they're showing icons that some they show Renaissance art, then they show Eastern Orthodox. This is clearly a Russian style icon of Christ in the Eucharist cup, demonstrating his sacrificial blood, and again how he's getting ready to fulfill the prophecies of the Messiah and the redeeming of humanity. This is why, again, we have our own hermeneutics. We'll get into this when they get into red eggs. So he'll tie this whole occult symbolism to red eggs, which we use for Easter to tie back to alchemy. And my point was going to show, well, we have a different symbolism. And even China has red eggs. They have a different symbolism. Just because there are red eggs, there can be different uses for a red egg to mean different things symbolically. Again, this is the word concept fallacy, or here the symbol concept fallacy, that one symbol must mean one thing. Here, oh my gosh, look, Jesus is a little man and he's in a cup. I bet he's a homunculus. What? And so for those of you who are a little confused and may not know, a homunculus is a little person. It is a representation of a small human being originally depicted as small statues made out of clay, popularized in 16th century alchemy and 19th century fiction. It is historically referred to the creation of a miniature, fully formed human. The concept has roots in pre-formationism as well as early folklore and alchemical traditions. The term lends its name to the cortical homunculus, an image of a person with the size of the body parts distorted to represent how much area of the cerebral cortex of the brain is devoted to it. Again, as I said, it comes from the first time homunculus is even mentioned as a word comes in the 16th century, as I said, the most magical century of European history, the 1500s, by alchemist Paracelsus. And he says that the sperm of a man be putrefied by itself in a sealed cucurbit for 40 days with the highest degree of putrefaction in a horse's womb, or at least so long as it comes to life and moves itself and stirs, which is easily observed. At this time, it will look somewhat like a man, but transparent, without a body. If after this, it be fed wisely with the arcanum of human blood and be nourished for up to 40 weeks and be kept in the even heat of the horse's womb, a living human child grows therefrom with all its members like another child, which is born of a woman, but much smaller. So there's all these different things, which again, he goes through in this video about the philosopher's stone. And he basically, this whole 9-hour, 10-hour video is taking Jung's interpretation. So this guy, the visions of Zosimos of Panopolis, he's going to emerge in our listenings here. And this is where this guy's getting all this stuff. See, Carl Jung believed that the concept first appeared in the visions of Zosimos. And this is how this guy's then saying that it's ancient. But again, he rejects the ancient period because he believes that everything comes from the medieval period. And in the visions of Zosimos, he encounters a priest who changes into the opposite of himself. And this is where they're going to have a whole theology of like the double body or the second self. And Jung equates the homunculus with the philosopher's stone or the inner person in parallel with Christ. And so then that's why he's very, very supportive of Rosicrucianism, because Rosicrucianism again has reference to a homunculus regarding to the chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz. So this is where he's getting a lot of this stuff from in his interpretation.
Therefore, they were attempting to explain the creation of Jesus as a homunculus, or in this case, a miniature human kept in a sealed vessel from the moment of creation. For the same ideology that we witnessed with Liber Vaci. Tostado also discussed the potential consequences of creating homunculi, stating that allowing a homunculus to grow into a fully developed human could be seen as tempting God and would reduce the term mother to the status of a flask. Additionally, this concept would go against the views of the Church, particularly the idea of salvation, where God died for everyone's sins, excluding spontaneously created life forms resulting from experiments like homunculus. This idea is reflected in the Arnaldian homunculus legend, where Arnald of Villanova would kill his alchemical homunculi before God might infuse a rational soul into the conceived. Arnold of Villanova was the ambassador for James II, King of Aragon.
You see how they just break? He just goes into piece. He's telling a story. This isn't research. This isn't sophisticated anyway. It's a presentation. It's a story. It's there's no justification for anything that he puts forth. He just wants you to buy into this alchemical story.
Aragon and Sicily. He was known as the first physician that used alcohol as an antiseptic. This is in the 14th century. The first known mention of Arnold of Villanova comes from this period, specifically after 1323, as documented in the Biblioteca Comunale in Palermo. Now, why was Arnold suddenly the talk of the town? Well, it seems to be tied to a legend put forth by canonist John Andrea in 1346.
It's Andrea.
According to this tale, our man Arnold successfully demonstrated alchemical transmutation to the Roman Curia in 1301. He showed the royal court how to create a homunculus. Now we're going to begin to take a look at medieval and early Christian art to assist us in our analysis. We didn't bring it up, but one thing to consider is that the great artists of history were typically initiated into the secrets as well, or they needed to embed the symbolism in their works.
So that already presupposes that if we're going to look at Renaissance and medieval art, then he believes every artist is already initiated into a secret society which already knows that Jesus Christ is a homunculus, and that this is revealing them this alchemical secret that has been the basis of all the world religions. This is literally his argument.
If we examine these paintings, we may find answers that are not to be found in the historical record. There are many curious details to consider. To begin, there are paintings that show the moments of Mary's Annunciation by the angel Gabriel. We'll start with one of the most famous paintings by Leonardo da Vinci, who typically does get tied into this story involving the Jesus bloodline and the Templars. However, if we examine his painting on the Annunciation of Mary, there are some interesting things to consider. Mary has her hand pointed up with a specific hand pose, but her right hand is in that Rosicrucian hand pose that I was speaking about earlier, and it's pointing down. What is she doing here? First, she's reading on a lectern, but it's some sort of chest with ornamental design. This is typically where people won't look in detail, and the Brotherhood will put some of their symbols here. We see the seashell. We know that that is a sex symbol, but also a symbol for spontaneous generation. Then under, we see the Rosicrucian.
And it can't mean anything else. It can't have any other meaning.
Roses. In the background, we see a quite detailed city that seems to be of Leonardo's time. Yet, are these the type of buildings that they were building in Bethlehem or even Nazareth? Speaking of buildings, there are some paintings by Giotto de Bondone in the Scrovegno, Padua that show the Annunciation through symbols, where the priest is holding a building that is placed over the womb of Mary, and there are three figures behind the building representing the alchemical stages. There are two Marys, one in the front, which she's dressed in more church attire, and in the center, then there's another Mary in the back, dressed in red. Behind her is the angel Gabriel. From Simone Martini and Libo Memmi, in this painting of the Annunciation from 1333, it's very similar to Leonardo's painting, but this time there's a vessel with white flowers in front of Mary. And also, this whole reading book thing is strange because it means that she was of a higher class or status. We can see the Holy Spirit is a dove encased in some type of circle of baby cherubim,
symbolizing its divinity, that he's surrounded by the seraphim, the cherubim. Again, the halo around. This is symbolic of divinity.
Interestingly, we can see that there are rulers of the church depicted with portraits that seem to have dark skin. These are said to be the prophets that allude to the mystery of the incarnation. From the left, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, and Daniel. Interestingly, there's something else to consider. They don't really know who this figure on the right is, and they even say the inscription under her feet, which identifies her as Judith, is incorrect. In Fra Angelico's painting from 1437, and I remember this one from art history class because it was an early form of perspective, and there are things to gather from this as we can see the same rose ornamentation. However, there are previous other works that are far more detailed and colorful that show what these look like in completion. This seems to be the final work, and it's mind-blowing. In this painting, we see something clear. It's the same painting where they're both leaning over, but there's a beam of light shooting into here this time, and it goes up to the right corner where there are hands, so this is coming from God. But if we look close, God is actually shooting the Holy Spirit, but this is the middle pillar, another kabbalistic reference.
God is shooting the Holy Spirit. No, bro. It's the Annunciation. It's conception through the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit impregnates Mary by saying, yes, she's confronted with Gabriel. What are you talking about?
Again. Jesus is being sent into Mary as she is reading another book. Now, you may think this
She's probably reading prayers.
is reaching, but it's not a matter whether this is true or artistic interpretation. It's the fact that we see this with such repetition and frequency through different artists. It starts to get really weird. There are paintings from the early 1300s showing the same thing. Let's take a look at Pacino de Bonneguida.
All right, we're going to skip to the next section. He just goes through all this different art and brings forth his own interpretation. You can't. Okay, so now we're going to the birth section.
Confirm that there are indeed complex symbols at play by examining another peculiar theme in medieval art. When viewed in isolation, this theme may appear as simply artistic liberty, but when placed within its appropriate context, it paints a different picture. I noticed when I was looking through some of the Fra Angelico paintings that Jesus was depicted with an opening near his rib. He was also green, but we'll touch on that another time. At first, I thought of Adam and the story of Eve coming from his rib, but this was definitely Jesus, and the mark is canonically from the spear that Longinus thrust into his chest. The blood from Jesus was said to have fallen into his eyes, healing him from his blindness. So I kept looking and found some more artworks with this wound. But instead of a wound, I found many artworks depicting this as a womb. And I think everyone has at one point thought that those words are awfully close together.
Yes, I'm sure everybody here has thought wound and womb must be the same word. It is unreal. This is so retarded. Oh my gosh. This is some of the dumbest stuff I've ever heard. So, yeah, I'll keep it going.
One such example is the fresco in the Church of San Francisco in Arezzo, Italy, which depicts Jesus with a bloody opening on his side near his rib. Now, the placement of this opening on Jesus' rib, rather than in the genital region, is quite strange and sets it apart from typical representations of hermaphroditic figures. So let's...
Yeah, because he's not a hermaphrodite. He's a man. In the tradition, again, if they even bothered to look into what the actual tradition says, Orthodoxy is explicit that he is fully man, fully God, and he maintains his manhood all the way into eternity as he ascended. He still has human nature in eternity right now in the kingdom. So he's not a hermaphrodite. That is a heresy. We do not believe he's androgyne, which they're going to argue. And then wait till we get to their judgment day part, because then they highlight that Christ and Baphomet are the same thing.
Let's delve deeper into the symbolic nature of this very specific detail. According to some interpretations, Jesus giving birth through his rib could be a reference to the biblical story of Eve being created from Adam's rib. However, the idea of Jesus giving birth to full-grown people, as depicted in some artworks, would certainly result in a deformed figure, the rib cage being an inadequate space for a fully grown human to gestate. So let's consider some more symbolic explanations for this vagina. One possibility is that it represents the concept of Jesus' blood being the source of new life, or a son. In this scenario, the son could be more of a genetic duplicate, or perhaps even a spiritual successor of Jesus, created by the alchemists of the time. The idea of Jesus...
The alchemists You can't make this stuff up.
Jesus' blood being used to create a son, or maybe a more familiar word would be a clone, ties in with this theme of resurrection and rebirth found in alchemy and Christian theology. The blood of Christ is often seen as a symbol of eternal life and redemption. And
yes, and you partake it in the Eucharist. This isn't some magical fairy tale.
The concept of the homunculus, an artificially created human being, is within the same realm.
No,
the concepts are one and the same.
No, it's
so
not.
Let's discuss Mary and secret orders, because a common point brought up by modern-day Christians who typically prescribe to Protestantism, they typically see Catholicism in a negative light. They bring up the Holy Roman Empire's obvious fascination with Mary, and I don't think we need to get too deep into that. You have to consider, why was the Virgin Mary just randomly chosen by God? Was she royalty? Was she special in any way? Another proof for the Rosicrucians being found 300 years prior to the beginning of the 17th century is the illustrious Brotherhood of Our Blessed Lady. It was a religious confraternity founded in 1318 in Sertogenbos to promote the veneration of the Mother of God. The Brotherhood was organized around a carved wooden image of the Virgin Mary. They are also known as the Brotherhood of the Swan. The reason I bring this up will be relevant for a future section. One of the most prominent members was Hieronymus Bosch, and take note of that for later.
Yes, so now they use Hieronymus Bosch, so I'm sure some of you guys are going to be familiar, the very famous Flemish painter. And he has famous works like the Crucifixion here. I'm sure you guys have seen this before. This one right here, the Garden of Earthly Delights. And all these paintings are late 15th century, so late 1400s, early 16th century. This is where Hermeticism and the Hermetic corpus is already translated by Marsilio Ficino And so, yes, I'm sure Hieronymus Bosch was aware of some of these esoteric and occult alchemical understandings, because that's what was going on at that point. This is obviously 1,400, 500 years after Christ. But if it's everybody knows that Hieronymus Bosch, one of the criticisms towards his work has to do with him as a potential portrayal of Cathar and various heresies. So right here, it was sometimes argued that Bosch's art was inspired by heretical points of view, the ideas of Cathars. I've done a whole thing on the Cathars when you talk about the psychedelic frescoes of mushrooms present within Europe. Or putative Adamites, or the Brethren of the Free Spirit, as well as some obscure Hermetic practices. Again, since Erasmus had been educated at one of the houses of the Brethren of the Common Life, yada, yada. Okay, going whatever. But my point is, they're using somebody who certainly he was monumental in the development of surrealist art, no doubt about that. But to then use him to argue for the basis of Christian theology based on art that was done at the end of the 15th century that is noted to be heretical from a Christian perspective. What? You think that makes your argument?
What we can point out is the use of magic in Catholicism through imagery and idolization of Mary. It's almost the Holy Roman Empire worships Mary, or the act of creation of Jesus, and not Jesus himself. Many modern Christians, or King James Bible advocates, claim that Christianity is separate and different from the Catholic tradition. While Catholicism is known for its...
Again, that's stupid. Catholics, Orthodox, we're all Christians. Yes, Catholicism does go in the deep in regards to some of the Mariology, which Orthodoxy doesn't do. But in the middle point between Protestants and Catholics is we recognize that she is the Theotokos, the mother of God. She gave Christ his humanity. Therefore, she birthed him. She is the mother of God. She did not give him his divinity. That comes from the Trinity. That comes from the Father. So again, you see how they're advocating for magic, and then they use magic as a derogatory term towards the Catholicism. It's like, which one is it?
For his use of holy relics, believing that saints and their remains have supernatural powers. There's also the worship of the Black Madonna, which is prevalent throughout Templar and Catholic churches in Europe. Some argue that this was just Orthodox propaganda, painting the skin black. However, this can be seen in Catholic traditions and festivals. France seems to have a higher number of these Black virgins, and it has been suggested that this is connected to secret societies and secret cult worship. The skull ritual involves the skull of Mary Magdalene, which is already very strange and occult. Then there's a contraption that is held in, which makes it seem like it's some sort of device or technology. This could be a method for keeping her spirit contained or connected with the earthly realm, which would allow her to be a guiding figure for those who seek her wisdom and guidance. Why else would you keep someone's skull as a holy relic and perform massive ceremonies with it? According to the Catholic Church, Mary is the mother of God, also the mother of the Church. This veneration of the Virgin Mary could be seen as some form of out-in-the-open goddess worship originating from ancient pagan practices. Now, I'm neither a Protestant or Catholic, but it could be argued by Protestants that some of this veneration comes off a little bit like idol worship, and that kind of distracts from the Trinity. Certain devotions to the Virgin Mary, such as the Rosary or the Litany of Loreto, might be perceived as forms of worship to some Protestants. It's a medieval practice.
Whether they perceive it as worship or not, the question is, are they worshiping Mary or are they venerating Mary? Those are two different practices. Worship and veneration are two different things. We venerate icons. We don't worship icons. And so, again, there's just no sophistication or nuance in this presentation. Yeah, I will agree that Catholicism does do some weird things in regards to their Mariology that we as Orthodox don't accept, but they totally contradict themselves, because at the very beginning of the presentation, as I showed you, they argued, well, the God of the Bible, he condemns black magic, but he doesn't condemn magic and esoteric secrets and occultism, generally speaking, because all that means is that they're secrets that are hidden in the dark. And then they use magic to be a derogatory attack towards Catholicism in favor of Protestantism. Why? Because they want the Protestantism, because they're trying to again, give credence to the sort of Rosicrucian, post-Reformation, occult, hermetic Protestant worldview. And that's why they're using all this art from that time period, which, again, how does that explain what Christ is at the beginning of, the first century? It makes no sense.
practice that combines repetitive prayer and reflection on specific events or mysteries in the lives of Jesus Christ and the Virgin Mary. This rosary is considered a powerful form of intercessory prayer, where it's believed that praying the rosary invokes the Virgin Mary to where you can interact with her. Each bead represents a decade, and it is a mystery of the Virgin Mary. You're supposed to recite Hail Mary 10 times while reflecting the specific mystery. Watching someone explain this is pretty interesting, especially if they're not interested in the occult at all. I don't really get the whole need to meditate on her mysteries. What are the mysteries? So there are secrets to be discovered. The mysteries involved 4 different categories and revolve around the entire story of Jesus Christ. But perhaps...
Okay, we got so much more to get through. I didn't realize we're already an hour and 15 in. Let me go to the next section here. So the next section is, we are at 546. 5. Here we go. The red eggs. This is a good one.
In various paintings and icons, we often find Mary Magdalene holding a red egg. Why is this even associated with her? It's still alive in the Orthodox tradition.
Because she pronounced Christ's resurrection. Again, so before they even give their interpretation, here is what we as Orthodox believe for the red eggs. Because it's customary during Pascha that we have red eggs. Why do we have red eggs? We have red eggs. It can be traced back by Christians all the way to Mesopotamia, a custom of painting eggs red in memory of the blood of Christ shed at his crucifixion, spread into Eastern Europe and Siberia through the Orthodox churches, and later into Western Europe through the Catholic and Protestant churches. However, the tradition evolved across Europe. Okay. And so the egg itself is a symbol of its hard shell, represents the sealed tomb of Jesus, the cracking of which symbolizes his resurrection from the dead in the exit from the tomb. Due to its religious significance, the egg serves as an emblem of the resurrection, and its decorated Pascha variations are globally recognized as a symbol of the most special day on the Christian calendar, Easter, the event that sealed the promise for eternal life. According to some followers of Eastern Christianity, we owe the Eastern tradition of painted eggs red to Mary Magdalene. This tradition of some believers states that Mary Magdalene brought cooked eggs to share with other women at the tomb of Jesus, and that the eggs in her basket miraculously turned brilliantly red when she witnessed the risen Christ. Okay, so that's why we have our symbol. Again, any symbol can be interpreted many different ways. Now let's hear their explanation.
They hand out red Easter eggs. Today, while the mainstream interpretation by the Catholic and Christian churches connects the red egg to Easter and the resurrection of Christ, further investigation into esoteric and alchemical perspectives unveils a deeper meaning behind this powerful symbol. To understand the origins of the red egg symbolism, we must delve into the story of Mary Magdalene's proclamation of Christ's resurrection to Emperor Tiberius. According to the tradition, Mary Magdalene, a wealthy woman, denounced Pontius Pilate's conduct during Christ's trial before the emperor. As she spoke of Christ and his resurrection, she held out an egg, exclaiming, "Christ is risen." Emperor Tiberius, unimpressed, stated that there was as much chance of a human being returning to life from the dead as there was of the egg in her hand turning red. Miraculously, the egg turned red, serving as a testament to the truth of Christ's resurrection. This event has been immortalized in various artistic depictions, with Mary Magdalene often shown holding a red egg. The egg has long held symbolic meaning across various cultures and religions. In Christianity, it represents creation, spring, and rebirth. With the resurrection of Christ, the egg gained a deeper symbolism, as the sealed tomb of Christ was likened to an uncracked egg.
Yes.
St. Augustine described Christ's resurrection as a chick bursting from an egg, reinforcing this symbolism. Although the sharing of Easter eggs has its origins in Mary Magdalene's proclamation and the miracle of the red egg, it's essential to recognize that Easter, as a celebration of Christ's resurrection, has roots in pagan holidays. Easter is closely linked to the spring equinox, a time of renewal and rebirth. So it seems that Mary Magdalene essentially created the Easter egg, which connects her with other fertility goddesses.
She created the Easter egg, and therefore she's a fertility goddess, guys. Don't you see? No. And even the fact that Pascha comes at the spring equinox doesn't mean that, one, it's not a historical actual event, and two, it makes sense then that even creation itself would celebrate, and the solar calendar would celebrate in the story of God's incarnation, because creation was created through the Logos, right? So that doesn't disprove the event. And then he goes into the Orphic egg. If you guys aren't familiar, he's getting ready to go into the Orphic egg and the Orphic serpent, Orphism, and it has to do with this this right here, the Orphic egg. And he's going to connect this back with Mary Magdalene. What? Just because it has an egg doesn't mean it's the same thing, right?
It seems safe to assume that the red egg, a symbol of alchemy representing creation and rebirth, is a metaphor for the alchemical
So it just the red egg just went from a symbol for the resurrection. Now it's a symbol of alchemy.
process. Eggs are referenced by alchemists, and here's an engraving that shows the alchemical egg by Basil Valentine called Azoth.
Which this is like 1600s. Again, this is like 17th century. What does a 17th century alchemical piece of art have anything to do with an event that the people who believe in it believe happened in the first century? What?
So when Mary Magdalene holds the egg initially, Christ is the white stone. This is the birth of the alchemical child king. This white stone then becomes the philosopher's stone, so the white egg becomes the red egg, meaning the consolidation of Aether or Spiritus Mundi, the originator of all things, called Azoth, which is another reference to this primordial black substance. This connects Mary the Virgin and Mary Magdalene into one figure, as she represents the alchemical process and creation. Just as Mary the Virgin gave birth to Jesus, Mary Magdalene assisted in the rebirth of Jesus. This is even further confirmed.
She did not assist in the rebirth of Jesus. That is not theological whatsoever. Just because she witnessed the resurrection or that the tomb was empty does not mean that she aided in his rebirth.
When we investigate another mystery, but fits perfectly into this context. In his writings, Zosimos refers to a few women who were influential to the field of alchemy. One of the most notable is Maria the Jewess, or Mary the Jewess.
Right here, Mary the Jewess. And so again, that Zosimos, remember Zosimos, who Carl Jung highlighted, was the first one to actually, he argued, was the first one to reference the homunculus. Zosimos references as Mary the Jewess from Egypt as one of the progenitors of alchemy. She was one of the first alchemical writers.
Also known as Maria Prophetessima, who is considered to be one of the founding figures of alchemy. Zosimos mentions her in his work with great praise as one of the founders of alchemy and that she lived no later than the 1st century. She's credited with the invention of several kinds of chemical apparatus and is considered to be the first true alchemist of the Western world. This is a fascinating historical reference as she's mentioned by Zosimos and other Greek alchemical writers. So through Zosimos, scholars have been able to learn a lot about Mary the Jewess, and apparently, her descriptions on alchemy and metal all allude to terms such as bodies, souls, and spirits. Mary believed that metals had 2 different genders, and by joining these 2 genders together, a new entity could be made. By joining the different gendered substances together, a unity could be created. George Syncellus, a Byzantine chronicler of the 8th century, presented Mary as a teacher of Democritus, whom she had met in Memphis, Egypt during the time of Pericles. The 10th century Kitab al-Farist of Ibn al-Nadim cited Mary as one of the 52 most famous alchemists and stated that she was able to prepare caput mortuum, a purple pigment. An early medieval alchemical text ascribed to an otherwise unknown Maurenius Romanus called her Mary the Prophetess, and the Arabs knew her as the daughter of Plato, a name which in Western alchemical text was reserved for white sulfur. So there are countless Arabic and Latin works that have yet to be fully translated into English that mention her. This isn't just some made-up figure, and if that was your argument, then that would bring into question a large portion of other authors as well. Another aspect to this is that she's credited as the inventor of the glass apparatus used in alchemy, but they have a couple different variations of these.
Now watch where he's going to go. He's going to make the claim that Mary, the mother of God, Mary Magdalene, Mary of Bethany, and Mary the Jewess, and then he's going to get into Saint Mary of Egypt, are all actually the same person and represent different variations of the divine goddess. Watch.
Specifically, the Bain Marie, the double boiler. She is responsible for the entire laboratory of the alchemist. The initial base concept where water in the central vessel is kept at a constant temperature through being submerged in another container of boiling water. Also called the Bonium Marii, interestingly, there's a religious significance as it means gentleness from heat, but it also references Jesus being the source of spiritual head and being nourished by water. Mary. From the Jewish Encyclopedia, quote, of a far less legendary character than all these seems to have been Maria Hebrea, who according to Hofer made one of the most important discoveries in chemistry, for she is said to have discovered hydrochloric acid. Her name survives in the Bonium Marii, the Bain Marie, a water bath extensively used in chemical processes in which gentle heat is necessary. significance. Images of the three Marys, in Spanish, Tres Marias, associated with the tomb are carried in Good Friday processions referred to by the word penitencia, Spanish, or penata, Filipino, for an act performed in fulfillment of a vow. They carry attributes or iconic accessories, chiefly enumerated as follows: Mary Cleopas, sometimes alternated with Mary Jacob, holding a broom; Mary Salome, holding a thurible or censer; Mary Magdalene, sometimes alternated with Mary of Bethany, holding an alabaster chalice or jar. According to a legend propounded by Hamo of Auxerre in the mid-9th century, rejected by the Council of Trent, Saint Anne had by different husbands 3 daughters, all of whom bore the name Mary and who are referred to as the Three Marys. However, if we consider all that's been said, it could be argued that Mary the prophetess of Egypt and Mary Magdalene are the exact same person. They were both wealthy, independent.
No, it can't be argued they're the exact same person at all. Mary Magdalene is not Mary a Jewess. One, they're in totally geographical points. They're in different chronologies. They're different historical timelines. One is an explicitly historical woman that was related to alchemy. Another one has to do with a wealthier woman who followed Christ and aided in his ministry. And she was there to witness the empty tomb. And then, yes, we trace the use of the red eggs back to various stories related to Mary Magdalene. That does not make her a goddess figure, which does not make her an alchemist or a witch or anything like that.
Women, and Mary Magdalene is depicted as higher class in all her paintings. Did Mary Magdalene ever go to Egypt? This is just a crazy topic because there's so many tie-ins, and no, it's not simple to conclude that this is merely because Mary was used many times for naming females. There's definitely more to it than just that. We now have a fourth Mary to investigate. This is the Mary of Egypt.
Mary of Egypt, and another form of the Mary goddess. Oh my gosh. No, bro. Look, and then this is again at a different point. This is 4th century. She lived from the 4th to the 5th century. Different point in history. But he's going to claim they're all the same person.
It's a completely separate historical figure. This is not Mary the Virgin or Mary Magdalene, and it's not Mary the Jewess or the alchemist. No, this is a separate Mary from all the other three, from the same time period. This is an Egyptian saint, highly venerated in Eastern Orthodox churches and Catholic churches commemorate her as a saint. In this story, Mary of Egypt is born somewhere in the province of Egypt, and at the age 12, ran away from her parents to live an extremely desolate life. In her Vita, it states that she often refused the money offered for her sexual favors, as she was driven, quote, by an insatiable and irrepressible passion, end quote. Wait, so there's another independent harlot figure, and it even gets stranger. Quote, she undertook the journey as a sort of anti-pilgrimage, stating that she hoped to find in the pilgrim crowds at Jerusalem even more partners to sate her lust. She paid for her passage by offering sexual favors to other pilgrims, and she briefly continued her habitual lifestyle in Jerusalem, end quote. So somehow this all changed when she was kept outside the church by an invisible barrier and saw this as a sign that she was impure, so it made her really upset. Then, after seeing the image of the Virgin Mary, it made her pray for forgiveness and she would give up the entire world. She then, from doing sexual favors with a passion who could not control her lust, now all of a sudden is a master monk living in solitude. She then becomes a hermit and lives the rest of her life in the wilderness.
Yeah.
But there's one detail that ties it all together. Remember the story from the Golden Legend? Well, now let's compare the end of Mary of Egypt. We see that this Mary of Egypt has the exact same story as the early legends of Mary of Magdalene from the medieval legends. But there's one interesting detail. At the end of Mary of Egypt, according to Mary of Egypt's story, 1 year before her death, she recounts her entire life to a saint or priest who she encountered in the desert. This priest is no other than Zosimas of Palestine.
Oh my gosh, Zosimos of Palestine, Zosimos of Panopolis.
Now, this isn't Zosimos of Panopolis, it's Zosimas of Palestine. Literally just one letter difference. But what are the chances of the similarity? Zosimas, who is a Palestinian saint and really only known for his encounter with Mary of Egypt, other than that, he really has no contributions. He's just referenced in the story. Even on the wiki page for Zosimas of Palestine, it says, quote, the story shares many similarities with the one recorded in the Western Church as a story of Mary Magdalene, with Zosimas renamed as Maximin as recounted in the Golden Legend and elsewhere. The fresco illustrated by Giotto in his workshop in Assisi shows this version, end quote. So even scholars see the connection, but they refuse to investigate it further.
Because there isn't. Mary Magdalene Mary, the Virgin Mary, Mother Mary, Mary of Bethany, Mary of Egypt, and Mary the Jewess are not the same person.
These are all the same figure. Mary Magdalene, Mary the Virgin, Mary the Jewess, and Mary of Egypt is Mary Magdalene, or Mary the Alchemist. This is
Mage Delin. No, dude. She's named Mary Magdalene because she was probably from Magdala. It shows she was a Magdalene. She was from, where's that at? Magdala. She came from the town of Magdala, a fishing town from the western shore of the Sea of Galilee. Mary that came from Magdala, just like Mary of Bethany came from Bethany. Mary Magdalene was the Mary that came from Magdala. No, bro, she's the Mary Magdalene.
This is also interesting when you consider the Amazon women and how they are claimed being population receders, that they were a race of androgynous beings that were feminine in nature, and they were superior and advanced as they had balanced both aspects of mind and brain. These goddesses, or queen bees, would then generate entire civilizations through repopulation. So if Mary of Egypt left for Alexandria, then we have our direct connection to Mary of Magdalene being Mary.
You do not have a direct connection. What are you talking about, dude? You see what I'm saying? They just go from one thing to one thing to one thing. They're never actually justify it. They never prove anything. They go, see, she has a red egg. That's the same egg as the Orphic egg. That means she was an alchemist. And then we have Mary the Jewess. Bro, what? What? No. This is terrible, terrible work to try to put an argument together.
Mary the Jewess, as Alexandria as where Gnosticism infused with Greek and Roman mysteries, developing into the beginning of alchemy. So we covered the three Marys. Now we can connect that to the three wise men. Let's simplify it. We know that there were three Marys of the cross, and in Orthodox tradition, they are called the myrrh bearers.
Yes.
So they also brought myrrh. But the difference is these three Marys, or you could say wise witches, wise queens, were present during Jesus'
Or these wise witches, no, they weren't witches, bro. Nobody in the Christian tradition says the myrrh bearers were witches. They didn't perform like magic. What are you talking about?
is death. Okay, so now the three wise kings, remember, brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh. But who were these wise kings? The three mages, yes, they were mages, and what were they doing? They claimed to essentially worship, or if you prefer, venerate the Virgin Mary. So, the wisest of mages. These three wise men were the scientists and alchemists of the time. They decided to what? Follow a star, the star of Bethlehem, so that they could witness the birth of a prophesied Messiah. So they knew the future, came to witness this birth under the star of Bethlehem, or perhaps it would be more clear to say the star of Astarte. That would make more sense, that these three mage alchemists were coming to witness a master alchemist perform the creation of a homunculus. Let's explore to see if this holds water. The Renaissance artists were tasked with creating images and spiritual physical manifestations of the Word of God. Early Christian paintings are crucial in understanding what these scenes were like if they truly existed.
These are not early Christian paintings. These are from the Renaissance. Again, this dude has no understanding of history whatsoever. What we're looking at, he says, these early Christian paintings. This is not an early Christian painting, dude. What an idiot.
So examining art is history. It's just a different medium. We're not.
But there's a different interpretations to art. Not all symbols mean the same thing. A red egg can mean one thing in Christianity. It can mean something totally else in China. Both can have red eggs. Both can have different symbols.
Looking at the text, we're using images. And for this, one must know the language of symbols. In the right context, interpretation becomes an art of understanding what the original artist was trying to portray. And all we're trying to discover is, did the artists who participated in the paintings of the Adoration of the Magi have the secret knowledge of Plato and the alchemist? Let's see what we can find. We'll start off with the most notable examples in linear order. Giotto de Bondone, Adoration of the Magi, 1304.
Okay, we're going to skip forward here. Okay, we're at 613. The next part that I wanted to get into was Jesus' resurrection. Here we go.
Jesus is seen as a symbol of the phoenix, but the Renaissance artists use this.
According to who? Who sees Jesus as a symbol of the phoenix? I know Christians don't see him as a symbol. Jesus is not a symbol, and he's certainly not a symbol of a phoenix. No.
To secretly reference the homunculus. They showed this in different ways. One method through the triptych tri-panel paintings that would show multiple stages in one. Also, hidden background elements, flasks, bases, and other symbols to represent the womb. You would see Jesus essentially go through the alchemical rebirth, and they treat the symbology as a rebirth symbol similar to the Ouroboros. This isn't reaching either. This is how it was designed. And this was the science at the time the Abrahamic religions were created. It's the most ancient art form and oldest secret. The secret to create life. Baptism is the purification process. It could be considered a form of sexual magic. This is from
Baptism is a form of sexual magic? What?
many reasons, but simply, the water is a female quality. Water is sexual by nature. But baptism is rebirth. Think about it. The Baptists believe that you're born again as soon as they accept that Jesus died for their sin and was buried and rose again.
The Baptist you just referred to didn't emerge until the 1600s, dude. Again, they had no understanding of what he's talking about. Guys, smash that like for everybody who's here. And again, feel free to, if you want to show some love, send in a super chat using the Streamlabs link or YouTube. Again, we need 4 more YouTube members to get a new emoji. Help me out, guys. 4 more YouTube members.
That is a form of alchemy and rebirth. Also, Jesus tells us in John chapter 3, verses 5 through 6, quote, Jesus answered, Verily, verily, I say unto thee, except a man be born of water and of the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of God. That which is born of flesh is flesh, and that which is born of spirit is spirit. End quote. Alchemists use aqua as another means for semen, and the spirit is the aether. There's no apparent reason for why Jesus is crucified. Not his death or his sacrifice. Why specifically would the crucifixion method be used? Surely there are...
Because that was the way capital punishment and torture was done by the Roman Empire. And I just want to clarify for somebody, I was not saying that or we don't believe in baptism as Orthodox. Of course we do. My point was the reference that he made had to do with the Baptists, which is a form of Protestantism. We obviously believe baptism is important. We believe in a triple immersion, and we believe in pedo communion. So we baptize children. We don't believe in a sort of age of reason or anything like that. Baptism is incredibly important for us Orthodox. I was not making that point if it was misconstrued by anybody. My only point was when he was talking about baptism as a sexual metaphor, then he refers back to Baptists, meaning the Protestants. What?
Are far better methods. The ritualistic and occult significance is never really explained outside of why Jesus came down in the first place. The question is, why did they nail him to a cross in that fashion of torture? Crucifixion is a method of capital punishment in which the victim is tied or nailed to a large wooden cross or beam and left to hang until eventual death. It was used as a punishment by the Persians, Carthaginians, and Romans. Before we discuss one of the possible reasons for crucifixion, there is a clue that can help tie this all together. It goes back to the series of Tree of Life paintings on the crucifixion from the early 1300s. Now we can return to the kabbalistic work and understand what's going on. The Athanor is at the bottom of the cross, and at the top, what do we have? The Rosicrucian pelican, or phoenix. The bird is wounding itself with the intention of bleeding, and from the wound, it drips blood to sustain its children. The Rosicrucian's most prized symbol is not just a symbol of Jesus, but Jesus the homunculus, and the alchemical process in which he was created.
Again, how someone gets so distorted is beyond me. Yes, the pelican is a symbol that is present within Christian history. We can go over here to Christian symbols and look at the pelican. It began to be used in medieval Europe, and the pelican was thought to be of a particularly attentive to her young, to the point of providing her own blood by wounding her own breast when no other food was available. As a result, the pelican became a symbol for the passion of Jesus and the Eucharist from about the 12th century. How exactly that equates to a homunculus? Where again, this is a total leap. This is a non sequitur. Okay, the pelican symbol, yep, used in relationship to the Christ and the passion of Christ, and the fact that we then also consume his blood so that we can participate in eternal life. How does that equal a homunculus? What? That doesn't make any sense at all. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. Shout out to Santi's World, throws in $5, says, for staying awake. God bless. Well, thanks, Santi. Yeah, I need it. This is absolutely unreal, this stuff this guy puts forth. anyways, we'll continue on. We still got a few more I want to get to before we close up shop here.
It's the Phoenix. If we look through some of the Renaissance paintings on the crucifixion, we can see that the symbols are still there.
Again, why is he so interested in the Renaissance? Don't you think if this guy was really interested in understanding what was the historical take on Jesus' resurrection, the Eucharist, the three Marys, wouldn't you be interested in sources and citations concerning the first century? Wouldn't that be of most importance to you? But no, he's always interested in Renaissance and medieval alchemy stuff to then justify his alchemical lens, which is totally achronistic in regards to the chronology of the church itself. And of course, he makes breath of life. Jesse says, that's about the level of intelligence we're working here with, is the breath of life. Oh, Kristen was the first one. Tree of life equals the breath of life. Oh my gosh, you guys are awesome. I love you guys. God bless everybody out there.
They've just been hidden. The blood of Christ is collected at the bottom in the shape of an athanor. The crucifixion was a ritual. We know this because people were present to witness it. And in the depictions, it's typically a circle, obviously some type of death ritual.
Yeah, the crucifixion was sort of an alchemical death ritual. I think it's death magic. Is that what it is? What an idiot. Hey, shout out to Frankie D. He throws in 499, said, bro, he's like, according to this early Christian NFT. Yeah, basically. That's basically the amount of nuance and sophistication this guy brings to any of his stuff. Yeah, according to an early Christian NFT. Dude, like, he uses no early Christian sources. He uses no references to the church. Oh, I totally agree, Marcus. This is it's flat out blasphemy. It absolutely is. This is absolutely This is like a case of the ultimate prelest. I mean, Bryson Gray is definitely one of them. Again, as we mentioned about the debate last night, what a joke that was. Dude's a total moron. But the prelest that this YouTube channel is, this Mind Unveiled YouTube channel. Again, this is a 10-hour long video. 10 hours of this nonsense. How deep into prelest must somebody be to put this together? I mean, again, based on the blasphemous nature of this stuff, along with the way his voice sounds, I bet that chick pegs him. That's the only thing that makes a little bit of sense on how somebody can get to this point. Yeah, Pim Orso's right. And then there are three witches. And then the Virgin Mary and Mary Magdalene, Mary of Bethany, and Mary of St. Egypt, and Mary the Jewess. They're all the same person.
This ritual is initiated with the Holy Lance. And where was Jesus stabbed? Right on the side. But in the depictions, it seems to be right where his rib is. This connects to Adam and the creation of Eve, or a new human. Also, the cross itself represents eternal life. It is the Ankh of the Egyptian tradition.
No, the cross is not the Ankh. It's not the same thing.
Possible evidence for this happens to be a Templar artifact. It's actually some graffiti.
The Templars are heretics. The Templars are Gnostics. The Templars are not even considered true Christians. The Templars, again, this is historical fact. Again, it makes me think of Bryson Gray. Objective fact. But there is a historical fact. You can look at the beginning, or the Inquisition at the beginning of the 1300s. I want to say 1311 to 1314. They killed the leader of the Templars, forcing the Templars to relocate, in which they moved up to Scotland. And this is where we eventually get the first formation of Masonry and Scottish Freemasonry, which is about 100 years after the Templars were forced to relocate due to the Inquisition in Southern Europe by the Catholic Church. So using the Templars to provide an exegesis on Christ is absolutely retarded. It makes no sense.
Graffiti that was left in the Tower of Coudray and Chinon in France. It shows clearly exactly what we just discussed. We also see the swan in lunar crescent symbolism. So the person in the upper right could be Mary, but there's also a spear, so perhaps Diana of Ephesus or Libertas. The top middle is the cross with the athanor at the bottom. Then it seems to be a knight holding a shield with the star of Astarte or Inanna.
Oh my gosh, it's a 6-pointed star. Or it's an 8-pointed star. It must be the star of Anate or star of what? Dude, it could just be an 8-pointed star and it could have a totally different meaning. Again, this is totally stupid. Hey, Pim Orso, thank you so much, brother. Pim Orso's just gifted 5 COTEL crew memberships. God bless you, bro. Hey, that puts us over our mark. That puts us, okay, guys, I need in the chat, we're voting right now, another Schwab emoji or Terrence McKenna. Which one is it? Schwab or Terrence McKenna? We're going to add the new emoji right here. What do we want, guys? We can put COTEL. I got Terrence. Okay, McKenna. All right. Okay, do we want, you guys choose. Do we want, I'm going to pull this out. I got 2 McKennas that we could choose from. You tell me which one that you guys want to see. Do you want this McKenna on the left with the psychedelic background or this McKenna on the right? You guys tell me. So give me a left, an L in the chat for this McKenna, an R in the chat for this McKenna for the next emoji. L in the chat for this one, R in the chat for this one. What do you guys want? Left, I see left by Beyond Seraphim. Left. Okay, there we go. I think that's going to do it. The left one. L. Okay, the left one wins. There we go. The tribe has spoken. The tribe has spoken. All right. You guys are about to have that ready to go. Give me 1 second. We are going to have that in. All you guys have to do is hit here we go. Boom. 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 What? It says 5 more members needed. It just said 4. What? What is this crap? Look at this, guys. It's saying what? It just said 4 more members. We just got 5, and now it says 5 more members. What? I don't get it. I don't get it. I know I didn't mean to tease you guys. I swear before I went live, I double checked and it said 4 emojis needed. 4 emojis needed. Now it says 5 and we just got 5. That makes 0 sense. Anyways, thank you so much, Pim Orso, for helping me out, bro. I apologize for that. I swear it said 4 before going live here. Let me just make sure it's not 15. No, it says 5 more. Okay. All right. Well, let's get back to our event. Pim, thank you so much, brother, for helping out. And God bless everybody who are now members to the COTEL crew. Looks like Mela, Graham, PKD's Ghost, Technographics, and Shaunaverse were all gifted memberships. God bless you guys. Really, really appreciate it. Yeah, Slow Boy Whiteboard gives me the mad NPC. I'm sorry, Slow Boy. I'm sorry. I swear it said 4 before I went live. I don't know what's going on. All right, we'll continue on here. Again, if you guys want, we can get that. McKenna, I've already got it uploaded. We just need 5 more memberships. Anyways, here we go.
And he's holding some type of cross-ankh flask-like device. Below the cross is an egg, or you could say pineal gland. To the right, some interpret it as a monk or a fetus. We also see the fleur-de-lis.
Oh, that might be it. So Orthodox Russ says, I think if you gift a membership to someone who's already a member, it doesn't count. I could be wrong, though. I bet that's what happened. I need 5 unique members, new ones. That I bet that's exactly what it was. Good call, Orthodox Russ.
Why would this be associated with the Templars? There's actually a multitude of depictions and alchemical engravings from multiple.
Okay, let's go on to a new topic. Again, there's so much here. Okay, where are we at? We're at 6:52. Let's get into the 7-hour mark here. So here he wants to again do the whole Mithras and Christ thing.
We can now explore Mithras, and let's do another reminder that this is not zeitgeist. One of the major flaws of zeitgeist is the author did not consider the alchemical components to the Bible. There are many allegories that clearly reference the processes and stages of alchemy. 2, the author had the goal of essentially debunking Christianity, which is not our goal at all. If anything, this knowledge strengthens our faith. Furthermore, the documentary zeitgeist had no intention on considering the literal and physical symbols of the Bible that may suggest not only a secret science, but a brotherhood that has protected that secret for centuries. With that distinction in mind, let's see how Mithra, or Mithras the Homunculus, plays into this story. That's right, Mithras, without any question, is a homunculus. The reason we brought zeitgeist up is because there are other similarities. However, the story of Mithras goes far beyond astro-theological parallels with Jesus. It touches on the very roots of this ancient art of creating a divine being, or a religious homunculus.
And so, yeah, there might be a few symbolic overlaps with Mithras and Christ, but they're totally different worldviews. So Mithraism is a religion of animal and human sacrifice, inebriating substances, orgiastic activity. Again, you can see a sort of a bacchanalian type perspective on Mithraism compared to the moral strictures of Old Testament Judaism and then Christianity, right? So it's not in any way the same thing. And so now he goes into this whole thing with Mithras. Mithras was a homunculus. Here's a fact. Mithras was a homunculus for sure. He's a religious homunculus. So, okay. I want to go to the parts. There's a few more parts where he talks about Christ. And that's where I want to. So then he talks about homunculus and repopulation. They're tied to myths about repopulation. And then he thinks that the second coming of Christ has to do with the repopulating the earth, which is the weirdest thing ever. Here's a section he has on the witches.
So, how do the witches connect to this? And who were the witches? In popular culture, witches are often depicted as women with magical powers who practice witchcraft. Witchcraft can include different types of folk.
Hey, welcome, R-Wing Hoosier. Shout out to R-Wing Hoosier. Hey, I'm a Hoosier too, brother. Shout out to my Orthodox brother. Or if you are Orthodox, at least you're a Hoosier brother here in Indiana. Thank you so much, man, for becoming a member. And shout out to Ryland, throws in $4.99. Thank you so much, Ryland. No comment. God bless you. And thank you so much, R-Wing Hoosier, becoming a new COTEL crew member.
Folk magic, some of which can be positive, like healing potions and spells, and others that can be negative, such as curses. However, the common perception of witches is that they use their magic for solely harmful purposes. They were believed to have cast malevolent spells on their own communities and were accused of interacting with evil spirits. In popular culture, witches are often depicted as women with magical powers who practice witchcraft. Witchcraft can include different types of folk magic, some of which can be positive, like healing potions and spells, and others that can be negative, such as curses. However, the common perception of witches is that they use their magic solely for harmful reasons. They were believed to have cast malevolent spells on their own communities and were accused of interacting with evil spirits. So let's connect these witches with the phantom time hypothesis. According to this idea, there may have been a time when women, referred to as witches, were manipulated to cause specific disasters, especially famines. This concept was explored in a Christmas video featuring the Benedenti, or the Good Walkers, who were a group of good witches. They had to use their knowledge of astral projection to protect their crops from these evil witches. The witches' broomsticks could symbolize the hidden power of flying during astral projection. It enables individuals to project themselves into a completely different reality that mirrors the physical world, and perhaps by influencing this mirrored reality, they can affect things in the physical realm. So, let's talk about the three Marys, or the three witches. Interestingly, in Celtic mythology, the figure of the triple goddess embodies the aspects of the maiden, the mother, and the crone. It could use more symbols like the tree of life and rebirth as well.
The maiden, the mother, and the crone have nothing to do with the myrrh-bearing women in regards to Christ. If you want to use them as a sort of typology, again, regarding logos spermaticos, we could say that there's many prefigurings and Christ fulfills many things. So whether you want to look at solar symbolism and solar religions and all this different stuff, or resurrection gods. Yeah, Christ fulfills all this stuff, and so does the entire story. So anybody who's related to it, which would include the myrrh bearers, but the myrrh bearers are not limited to 3 women. Just because in certain Renaissance depictions that they've highlighted, they depict 3 Marys. The myrrh-bearing women, look, here we go. So myrrh-bearing women, does that look like a number 3 to you guys? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No. And there's not even only 3 Marys. There's 4 Marys there. And this person, or these 2 people, they include Mary the Jewess, which has nothing to do with Christianity. She's an alchemist. And Saint Mary of Egypt is included in that too. How does that make any sense? How does that make any sense?
The most well-known example of the 3 witches in mythology and literature is the Weird Sisters. The Weird Sisters, also known as the Wayward Sisters, are prophetic characters who predict Macbeth's rise to kingship and eventual downfall. In Macbeth, the themes of resurrection and rebirth can be observed through an alchemical lens. Macbeth's journey, starting with the prophecy of the Weird Sisters and culminating in his tragic end, parallels the cycles of death and rebirth depicted in the story of Jesus Christ. Just as Jesus went through betrayal, suffering, and resurrection, Macbeth's path is marked by ambition, corruption, and ultimately self-destruction.
And there was one more thing about the 3 witches in Macbeth that we really never discussed in detail, and now we're more prepared that we can see it more clearly. It's the 3 apparitions.
Yeah, Macbeth. Shakespeare's work in Macbeth is definitely describing the tradition of Christianity, which I believe began in the 12th century. What? Somebody, I've been saying it the whole, this is absolutely retarded. This is absolutely retarded. Now, there's a few more areas we can go into, but I told you guys, it's funny, it's frustrating, it's hard to listen to this crap. But I want to go into now the Last Judgment. Hear these morons' interpretation of the Last Judgment. Here you go.
The Holy Saints. The Last Judgment and the Second Coming of Christ depict essentially a repopulation scene. The Last Judgment.
The Last Judgment is not a repopulation scene. It has to do with judgment. And yes, the inhabiting of the new heavenly city, the New Jerusalem, but that is not repopulation. In fact, many people are going to be condemned to hell. Many people then are going to make it to the kingdom. We're not repopulating. It's what it is that everybody who's died, certain people are going to make it and certain people won't, and they're going to have a spiritual body.
It's a scene that depicts the Second Coming of Christ, an apocalyptic scene showing a split where one half of the crowd is saved and the other half is being tortured. All the demons giving birth are typically associated with the Last Judgment, so that means this androgynous being that we see giving birth is swallowing all the souls during the Last Judgment. The idea is that Jesus will come in 2,000 years and watch over this event as a presiding judge. This is common throughout early Christian art.
Slowboy makes a great point here. Slowboy Whiteboard makes the point that I made at the very beginning of one of my criticisms of this entire video that they made. Is they say, Slowboy says, they say everything, quote, can be viewed from an alchemical lens. Yeah, okay, but what makes any of it true? Exactly. What makes any of this true? Well, it can't be true. They contradict themselves. They appeal to one source, then reject the authority of another source. They use total generalities. They think because Mary Magdalene had a red egg that it's the same thing as the Orphic egg. What? It's just stupid. This whole thing is absolutely stupid. And they can't make any basis. There's no epistemic basis for why this actually should be believed other than it's 10 hours long of this nonsense. 10 hours long of this nonsense. Why should we believe any of it is the important point.
And we see the same 3, the Trinity, the same symbols, some that look like a square and compass. The strange part is that Jesus and sometimes Mary will watch over this and see all these people getting tortured as their souls get sent to hell for eternity. That story doesn't make too much sense with the kind, loving Jesus that we're told in the Bible to love your enemy. So,
they apparently didn't read the book of Revelation because it's part of the book as well, the Bible. And they clearly never looked into what is the theology of the Orthodox or the Catholic Church on judgment, because it makes a lot of sense. We pray for Mary to intercede for us on behalf of us to God because she's so pure and righteous. Makes sense why then she and Christ would be looking over the judgment of everybody. Mary doesn't judge us. Christ judges us. But Mary prays for everybody to be forgiven if they repent.
So then, is this really torturing souls? This is a 15th century fresco in the Church of St. Anne in France. We see trumpets, giant Jesus, and even Krampus in this one. There are very strange manuscripts showing giant Jesus watching over babies being reborn out of graves. The people in the bottom are getting thrown into the hellmouth, and the group to the right of the angel is being led to heaven or the kingdom. But notice how it's also literally a new kingdom. What if this is depicting the preparation before repopulating a ghost or emptied out city? So that's another thing. People are being put in graves or coming out of graves, being directed into new locations. In Hans Memling's Last Judgment, 1460, he puts this visual in a play quite vividly. Yes, the kingdom is going to heaven, but that could be a symbol for a new age. And also look at the people growing out of the ground. It's quite strange. So people are being reborn into another reality, an astral realm, where they're being judged.
They're not coming out of the ground. They're going into it. Or, yeah, they're coming out due to the resurrection. It's the judgment. They're spiritual bodies. Everybody's being judged. You see, they're weighing one person. One person weighs more than the other. The weighing of the souls is what's going on here. But again, this is surrealist art. This is Renaissance stuff. This is post-Renaissance stuff. This is like 1700 stuff. Like, what does that have to do with the theology of the judgment? It makes no sense. It's so stupid. It's irritating. Hey, shout out to Frankie D. My man throws in another $4.99. He says, dang, bro, you probably wasted precious mind bandwidth trying to interpret this dude's nonsense. Pray for healing, bro. God bless. I'm serious, dude. I couldn't get through it. What I'm showing you is what I watched. I watched a little bit more than this. I couldn't listen to it. It's too stupid. It's literally too stupid. As somebody said earlier, they're losing IQ points. It's not a joke. This stuff is so dumb. The fact that it is 10 hours long and has almost 300,000 views, guys. 300,000 views, and it's a little over a month old, says we are living in really dark times. The ability to critically think from people isn't very strong in the 21st century. This is ridiculous. It makes sense why I'm just now working my way to 20,000 subs. I'm trying to provide people with an actual basis to critically think and look at stuff. And meanwhile, this 10-hour garbage heap has 300,000 views. Lord have mercy.
Possibly, and that would still be strange. However, there's a symbolism ingrained. We see the three symbolism. Jesus is wearing red, like a Madonna, and posed just like Baphomet. There's a rainbow that is shaped like an upside-down crescent. In his ears, we see a flower with three main position points with the white flowers. And to his right, we see a red sword. And what is heaven? Because in these scenes, many of the times the people in the crowds in the heavens are still dressed, and it kind of looks like a church meeting. Also, in the top left entrance to the kingdom, there's some interesting details. There are 3 angels on each pillar, so there are 3 pillars in total, and there's a man sitting on the throne. Apparently this should be God, but it doesn't look like that. We can also see the 4 living beings, with the winged lion and the winged ox. This is some type of church. On top of that, there's a depiction of the creation of Eve from Adam's rib. Strange that would be here in this reset scenario. Maybe there's something else going on with these paintings? There's one painting by John Provoost, 1505, that holds the secret to the Last Judgment. We see the same Last Judgment scene, with people arising from the ground, but Jesus has his foot on a book, and the flowers and the sword are now more placed like a square and compass. Now this can't just be an accident or symbolism.
Oh my gosh, there it is, guys. There it is, the real truth. Now we get it. The basis of the judgment. There it is. Did you guys catch it?
Out of the ground. It's quite strange. So people and young humans holding a stone wrapped in 9 different sections.
It's the
books.
Masons.
The top right square is a 7 upside down, meaning the astrological influences are being captured and inverted. This is a flask with a frog entering, and a bird's head is peeking out, as if there's a monster inside. There's also this strange boy or young child that is half human, half, I don't know what this thing is. A blue demon with one eye and a trumpet for a nose? This is merging with the boy as he points to some archaic occult-looking book. He's also right in front of a flask. Is this a homunculus?
Oh my gosh, hilarious. Drew says, "Well, crap. Guess I'm leaving orthodoxy." Yeah, this is some really high level stuff. I'm sure a lot of you guys are riveted and probably questioning everything that you thought previously about your spiritual life. Yeah. Frankie D says this dude needs to start venerating some icon. This dude needs to pray for repentance first. This dude needs to take his head out of whatever soy ass it's stuck up, because it doesn't make any sense. This dude is retarded, and his girlfriend or sister or whoever that chick is that hops in every once in a while, they make no sense whatsoever. I feel bad for them, but at the same time, they say such blasphemous stuff that I don't mind being a little bit rude. I don't mind throwing a few ad hominems around, if you know what I mean.
Homunculus? Now we're going to look at the Coronation of the Virgin paintings. Here's a painting by Enguerrand Quarton, which is the Coronation of the Virgin from 1454. What we see is Mary is being crowned by a mirror Jesus as the Queen of Heaven, and she has those hand poses. Wisdom.
Here's his final thoughts. Here's his summation of this entire 10-hour long video.
And success. Okay, so that was it. Now I know it's not perfect, but we're fairly positive that that is the Book of the Cow, and it seems to be not that far off, but wow. It's talking about some pretty insane stuff. We're being told these supernatural gifts that come with the creation of a homunculus. The ability to see into the spirit world, but it gets deeper. The ability to conquer the planet.
It gets deeper.
Also, the text seems to be using cryptic terms as the creation of the cow. There's no specific term for homunculus used, and or this may be a translation error. But I just want to make it very clear to people who may not know that much about GPT-4, but there's no way it just made all that up. And if you go try to do the same, it won't even get remotely close to anything like that. Also, we did no editing whatsoever to the output. That was all from the text that was provided in Latin. So this is one of the strangest books ever. And hopefully in the future, we can get Latin translators to assist us in getting a final approved version with no errors. However, some of the things discussed in the book are just insane, including gaining the abilities to read minds and have access to the spirit realm. We can see why such a text would be hoarded. And this isn't the full version. We're seeing a text that was hidden within some massive medicine book, which may have been difficult to find, really. A way for keeping certain text hidden. It would seem the homunculus is much deeper than simply a...
Drew says, "Mom, when is my hungry man dinner done?" That's what he did while he was making this.
Little human in a flask, experimented with by medieval alchemists who most mainstream historians consider to just be imaginative madmen. But we've seen that the foundation of science comes from alchemy, and that many reputable scientists in the early formation of the scientific method were intrigued and fascinated by the concept of the homunculus. It seems that this topic goes further back than just the medieval ages, and that it was an ancient occult ritual practiced by secret occult orders. The homunculus was the greatest secret in not only the alchemists, but perhaps the church, as Jesus himself was a homunculus. This was shown through the ancient knowledge of spontaneous generation and the ancient rituals of generating bees from the carcass of an ox or horse, as with begonia. This was the secret symbol of the ritualistic creation of artificial life. The ancient alchemists used this knowledge to create all sorts of hybrid creatures and monsters, eventually realizing that the process of creating a homunculus itself is tainted and can be dangerous, resulting in the creation of a demonic being. Ancient philosophers, using the scientific method, devised a method for curing this disease and creating a pure homunculus, as with the cosmic man by the master alchemist Angabutha. This knowledge came from ancient times. It was passed from Greek Coptic text to Arabic, then to Latin, where it was learned by the monks in the church. This early time period of the ancient Greeks and Romans, who practiced their own unique rituals of creating a homunculus, are not as ancient as we're told. One solid proof of this is the frescoes themselves, the use of advanced medieval painting techniques and perspective, along with the same alchemical symbols. These practices were kept secret under initiation, and these rites are ancient in origin, going back to strange fertility cults involving gruesome ceremonies and initiation. It would seem that there was a great power, possibly allowing the gift of making miracles occur. Perhaps the homunculus is a huge missing piece to how magic works, and there are even multiple levels to that. The occult double body, or body of light, allows you to directly influence the astral realm, which would be considered a neophyte level ability. However, the creation of a supernatural physical homunculus created from talismanic astrological energies can create a physical cage or capture the planets and stars into a physical form. By doing this, they can cause certain magical events to happen. This practice is a black magic form of the homunculus, using it to create powerful planetary god humans that have special gifts and powers. But over time, this knowledge slipped into the hands of the church, or perhaps it was stolen. After a reset occurred, now we know that the alchemists were indeed trying to influence comets.
Oh my gosh. The black magic of the homunculus was stolen by the church. And then he goes back to a Renaissance painting of Dante. What? This guy is an idiot. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Weirdo John says this dude needs to get a job. I doubt he's going to be quite competent in anything given the competency of this video. Absolute nonsense. Orthodox Russ says, great stream time for Vespers, though. God bless. God bless you, Orthodox Russ, and your family. Hope you guys enjoy Vespers. God bless you, bro. Thanks for being here. This is absolute nonsense. I'm going to let it finish. We got 4 more minutes. 4 more minutes of him explaining his homunculus nonsense, and then we can wrap it up. So if you, again, I want to thank everybody for being here and everybody super chatted. Smash that like if you're still here. We're going to close up with the last 4 minutes of this absolute brain dead nonsense.
In astrological events. Maybe the homunculus was one of the means into causing certain resets. After this, whoever held this knowledge ruled the world because they had the ability to create humans. With this knowledge, the church would then have the ability to create entire orders and populations of people. They realized this was their golden egg. They could create Madonna's child for the king and eventually had mastered this secret. This was the means in which they would destroy and reseed populations, the story of Noah and Abraham. The Abrahamic religions were created.
PKD's ghost said he has great pattern recognition, guys. Yeah, clearly. He sees patterns everywhere.
The art of the ritualistic creation of artificial life was the highest secret. This knowledge started with the early Phoenician Canaanite priests deciding to use this ancient wisdom for a hijack. This knowledge was used to create a divine homunculus, Jesus, and I believe he did exist, and they had multiple Jesus divine homunculi. Think about it. Jesus had miraculous powers and was born of a virgin. He can bring the heavens down, and he causes the reset on the last judgment on his second coming. This is all symbolism from the Book of the Cow. Remember the Ripley scroll? They found secret wisdom, kept everything secret, let out the parcels in esoteric format, and then used this knowledge to repopulate ancient cities that were taken over after cataclysms. What are the implications of all of this if it's true? Well, for me, it allows a deeper insight into the minds of the medieval writers and painters. It shows how deep the mysteries truly can be, and they have been pondered upon in a similar manner by medieval artists for centuries. This topic expands far more than just alchemy from the 15th to 16th centuries. We're talking about a lost ancient science that then after a hijack got
lost ancient science that he cannot produce one piece of examples of an actual homunculus. The premise of this entire 10-hour presentation is that there's an ancient science using alchemy and the energetic reality of the stars to be transmuted into the construction of an actual life form, a homunculus, a human, but smaller. And yet, throughout the 10 hours, he doesn't provide one example of an actual homunculus ever existing. So
turned into occult ritualistic practices, and then from there, it was converted into religion. The homunculus is a divine principle, just like magic. It is a talisman, the collection of divine energies into physical form. But it is also the union of opposites, soul and moon, creating a harmonized being, the balancing of both positive and negative forces. It's the ability to create astral forms and project intelligence into them, or even to use for astral projection. But we shall not leave this video concluding that the homunculus is purely metaphysical or philosophical. It was also possible literally, as above, so below. There are many more things to discuss, and this video really only scratches the surface. I wanted to give another final shout.
And that's really, this video really only scratches the surface. It's just scratching the surface of the homunculus. Oh my God. Guys, smash that like. I apologize for you having to bear the brunt of that absolute nonsense. I know that many of you feel like you've become dumber because of it. I know I feel that way. I apologize for you suffering through it, but because you did, I thank you. I greatly thank you. Frankie D throws in another super chat of $4.99. He says, well, if nothing else, I learned a new vocab word. I hope this stream gets homunculus traction. Yeah. Thank you, Frankie D. I hope it does too, man. It's, it's a mind bender. It was a mind bender for me to see the the lengths this guy, and I don't know if it's his sister or his girlfriend or whatever, went to try to make these arguments, but absolutely ridiculous. The idea that the Virgin Mary, Mary Magdalene, Mary of Bethany, Saint Mary of Egypt, and Mary the Jewess are actually all the same person. Christ was androgynous, and he's the product of an alchemical ritual that took place in the 12th century, and that the three magi from Persia came because the star of what I forget which one he said. I forget. Anyways, he had some magical star, one of the star of Astarte. Anyways, it wasn't the Bethlehem star. It wasn't the star of the creation celebrating the incarnation of God, but the Persian magi, which again the magi were known for their astrology. They found the star and went there to witness the homunculus ritual of Christ, and he was actually an alchemical ritual, a homunculus. He gave birth that the lance of Longinus that stabbed him while he was on the cross was actually a vulva that Christ gave birth through the wound and womb. Don't you guys know it's the same word? I mean, it's unreal. Yeah, Keenan, am I late? Bro, you're glad you didn't show up. Valkyrie said, my IQ. Oh my gosh. It was 10 hours of scratching the surface of his skin because the bugs underneath it are itchy. Seriously, this was absolute nonsense. Don't be mean, guys. Like I said, this kid leveled up my Dungeons and Dragons character in our camp. Thanks, Ryland. Young old boy says, sounds like he wants us to scratch the surface of his homunculus. Yeah, pretty much. It was absolute nonsense. Absolute nonsense. So, yeah, new drinking game. Drink every time he says homunculus. You'll definitely will not survive 10 hours. So, anyways, guys, I appreciate you guys suffering through that. But a major shout out goes to Meta Ninjas. Meta Ninja sponsor today's stream. Yeah. Jerome says my pineal gland has been decalcified. I can see the universe. Oh, glory to God, Jerome, that your pineal gland's been uncalcified. Oh man, this. Ryland says, this feels so much like D&D. I'm not even worn out after being here for what feels like an eternity. Yeah, Cat GPT says, you die of alcohol poisoning. No joke. That was brutal. That was brutal. And I just want to give a special thank you to everybody. So as I go through here, let me give a special thanks to everybody. First of all, very special thank you goes out to Meta Ninjas for sponsoring today's stream. Thank you so much, brother. Another one goes out to Zach Flayton, throws in $5 along with Meta Ninjas. Amptown, my sister, threw out $5 and says 20,000 subs coming soon. I hope so, guys. Hit that subscribe button. I am on the march to 20,000. I can't wait. Shout out to Lyra. Shout out to Tapio. Shout out to Raw Milk for the W. Throws in $10. No comment. Thank you so much, Raw Milk for the W. And that is a fact. One of the interesting things, since you brought up Raw Milk, one of the recent things I was looking at was Lord Rothschild. He had a special privilege to be a speaker at Parliament in Britain. And there's only 2 occasions that Lord Rothschild appeared to sway Parliament towards particular ends. The first one was for the British-owned Palestine to create Israel. So to bomb the Palestinians out of their homes so that the Jews can rush in and form Israel, the occupation. The second time Lord Rothschild appeared to the Parliament was for pasteurized milk. Why is Lord Rothschild so upset that people would potentially drink raw milk? I think that's really interesting. Could it be that pasteurized milk is actually toxic for us? So I'm a raw milk connoisseur, and actually a gentleman at my church helps me get my raw milk. So shout out to Olga, the cow that I get my raw milk from. I'm a raw milk supremacist. So shout out to you, Raw Milk for the W. Thank you so much for the $10 super chat. And thank you to Adam 1922 throws in $30, the biggest super chat today. Thank you so much, Adam 1922 for the $30 super chat. I do appreciate it. No comment. Shout out to Santi's World. Shout out to Frankie D, my brother, for all the super chats today. Thank you, bro, for all the support. Shout out to Ryland. Shout out to R Wing Hoosier. Shout out to, oh my gosh, shout out to Keenan Beats. Keenan throws in $5, says, brother, if you were to recommend any short reads from saints that had the biggest impact on you, what would they be? The biggest short reads from saints. That's a good question. Let me I'll tell you one that I just read. Here's a short read. We just did this for my premium members meeting. Prophecy Armageddon in the End Times, prophesied by the Orthodox Fathers. This is not a thick book whatsoever. This is not a thick book. And I think I was thinking about doing a stream on this topic. I just read this yesterday, and it got prophecies about Armageddon from St. Paisios. My favorite section is right here. Elder Joseph Vatopedinos. Elder Joseph Vatopedinos. Again, he died in 2009, and he has a prophecy that he get put forth at September 2007, which already he literally described the Ukraine-Russian war. It's pretty remarkable, but this isn't about the lives of the saints. So I apologize, Keenan. It's not the lives of the saints, but this one is a really interesting reading, nonetheless. In regards to the biggest impact on you, now of course Saint Maximus is my favorite. That's more of a theological work. I'm a big fan. One that I want to get into is the Ethics of Beauty. I'm a big fan of Wounded by Love. But it's not very small, so it's not a small one. In regards to a small work, let's see here. I guess my favorite one is my patron saint, the Confession of St. Patrick's and Other Writings. But St. Paisios of Mount Athos, I love reading his stuff. That's something I need to get into more, is the reading of the saints. A book that I'm getting ready to start, an Orthodox book I'm getting ready to start, is On Prayer by Saint Sophronius. So Saint Sophrony, he has the same birthday I do, of September 22nd. Now, he was born in 1896, but he's a modern saint, Saint Sophrony, and he's really important. So this is his book on prayer. I am getting ready to start this one. I'm excited. I'll probably do some streams on that. But in regards to just books on the lives of the saints, I really don't have that many, to be honest. You kind of put me on blast there, Keenan. I need to get some more. The one that I have that is purely a biography is St. Paisios of Mount Athos, which is a really good book. And that is his basically life and description and stuff like that. So I need to get some more Lives of the Saints. You put me on blast right there in the stream, Keenan. I hope you feel good about yourself. I'm kidding. Thank you so much, brother, for the $5 super chat. Oh my gosh. Jesse says raw milk is illegal in Canada. What? I did not know that. Raw milk's illegal to sell here in the United States. It's not illegal to consume. Raw milk or no milk. Absolutely. I agree with that. Yeah, Keenan drinks raw milk. I'm telling you, raw milk is the go-to. It's awesome. Okay. Keenan said he just got We Shall See Him As He Is by Saint Sophrony. Yeah, I just got On Prayer. Well, I've had it. I've been wanting to dive into it, and I haven't. But that is one that I've been wanting to really dive into. In regards to the Lives of the Saints, I have the prologue of Orid over here, which you can go through each day, and it gives you a different saint of the day, and it tells you a little bit about their life. That's really nice. If you guys don't have that, I recommend checking that out. But yeah, that's probably my biggest compendium of Lives of the Saints. I need to get more Lives of the Saints. I should do more streams talking about the Lives of the Saints. But anyways, thank you so much, Keenan Beats, for that final super chat. I really do appreciate it, brother. Thank you very, very much. And guys, that looks like that is going to do it for today. I'm going to be back tomorrow, whether it be an open panel, whether it be mocking people on TikTok, or whether it be doing my half and half lecture on the history of drug mysticism. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to be back tomorrow. So thank you all so much for the support. Again, major shout out to Lyra, to Tapio, to Santi, to Frankie D, to Pim Orsos for gifting 5 memberships. Thank you so much for R-Wing Hoosier for becoming a new member. Shout out to Ryland. Shout out to Keenan. Shout out to Raw Milk for the W. And shout out to Adam1922. Thank you guys so very much for the support. Smash that like. And I will be back tomorrow. So as always, until then, God bless.